Okay, thank you. And welcome everybody to this afternoon's meeting of the Somerset East Planning Committee. It's good to see you all here, so I'm welcoming the members, the people in the audience, the public, and everybody online. So we will get started. First, I have to do the chair's announcements, which are normal. So if you just bear with me for a moment while I read through these, and we will move on. Right. Welcome everyone to the meeting. This meeting is taking place in the Council Chambers, Shepton Mallet, and we have members of the Planning Committee, officers, public speakers, and members of the public physically present in the chamber. We also have members of the public watching the meeting on Teams. Cameras within the council chamber allow us to film the meeting for viewers on Teams and also record the meeting. Therefore, any members of the public present should be aware that they may be recorded even if they are not participating in the meeting. If this causes you any concern, then please let me know now. No, doesn't look like anybody's complaining. Members who have brought their own devices with them should ensure that their cameras are switched off and, very importantly, their device microphone and speakers are muted for the duration of the meeting. Otherwise, this causes feedback on the council sound system. Public speakers contributing to the meeting virtually should switch their cameras off and put their microphones on mute until they are invited to speak by the chair. It is not permitted for any other member of the public viewing by Teams to contribute to the meeting at any time. Should any member of the planning committee wish to speak, please raise your hand and catch the attention of myself, the vice chair, Ros, and the legal advisor, Leslie, or lead officers. When members in the chambers speak, remember to switch on your desk microphone so that all those in attendance and viewing can hear you. Please do not use the chat function within Teams for anything. All contributions must be made verbally. Please can all mobile phones be set to silent? Thank you. Next, we'll move to apologies, please. If we could, Helen.
Thanks, Chair. So we've got 4 apologies today. Councillor Helen Kay, Councillor Tony Robbins, Councillor Dawn Denton and Councillor Adam Boyden. And we've got 2 substitutes. So we've got Councillor Shane Collins for Councillor Helen Kay and Councillor Steve Ashton for Councillor Tony Robbins. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Then we move on to minutes from the previous meeting, of which we have none today. So we'll move on from that to the declarations of interest. Does anybody have a declaration of interest? Well, I have one, which will be on agenda item 5, the first one that we come to, and I presume that we all have to declare an interest on the other ones, correct?
Leslie, did you want to?
Leslie, would you like to clarify?
Yes, on the basis that we are looking.
Hold on, you need to turn it on, yeah, can you manage?
Yes, thank you, Chair. On the basis that we will be looking at an application or applications concerning land which is owned by the council, as a committee, you will need to declare an interest.
All right. Thank you. And I will be leaving the room when we discuss number 5 after I've made my own comments. Okay, Ros, did you wish to say something?
Yes, thank you, Chair. 2 things. I'm not sure whether item 5 is actually owned by the council, but I can stand be corrected on that.
No, I apologise for that.
Thank you. And items 7 and 8, I, like everyone, have to declare an interest because this is council land. I also like to say that, just for total transparency, over 2 years ago, I was leader of Mendip Council, and at that time there was some discussions about how land was used throughout the whole of Mendip. And while I wasn't directly responsible in terms of there was a cabinet member, indirectly, I was aware, but it's 2.5 years ago, and since then I have had no involvement in the planning applications. And the advice I have is that given that we're all declaring an interest that it's council land, I need take it no further. Thank you.
And thank you, Ros. Okay, so we sorted that out, and I think that Helen will have that all under control. Next is, yeah, we've done a declaration of interest, public question time, which I don't believe we have any, do we, Helen? As
No,
such?
there's no public questions today.
So then we're going to move on, and I'm going to hand over to Ros for this item, but I will be staying in the room until after everybody has had their say, and then I will be leaving the room. So I won't be taking part in debate. Okay, Ros, up to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We have the first item this afternoon on the agenda, item 5, which is 2 Chilkwell Street. And we have a number of speakers. And you're going to get very tired of hearing my voice, as that a majority of them have opted to have their comments read out. So, however, the first one is supporter Tim Voss. And I believe you wish to.
So, Ros, may I just say that the presentation will be made first,
Yeah.
and then the speakers.
Okay. My apologies.
So it'll be over to Emma
Yeah.
to do the presentations.
Thank you. Good afternoon, all. I will just bear with me. Okay. So there are 2 applications that are before members at the same site at 2 Chilkwell Street in Glastonbury. It is a householder application and also a listed building application, both for the same development. So for the purposes of ease, I will be discussing both applications together, but members will be asked to vote separately at the end of the debates. The case officer's recommendation is to refuse the application as for reasons that have been outlined in the report and will be discussed briefly in this presentation. The Glastonbury Town Council's recommendation is to approve the application. Pre-application advice was originally sought for a larger scheme at the site and involved the single-storey rear extension, which is now in front of members for discussion. The original pre-application has been amended, and some of the comments from the Heritage Officer were taken on board before coming forward with this current application. During the life of the listed building and the householder application for this site, there have also been comments made to the applicant and agent in regards to the concerns that the Conservation Officer had. And I will briefly touch on those as we go through. So just looking at the site, it's 2 Chilkwell Street, which is a Grade 2 listed building within Glastonbury Conservation Area. It's a 2-storey residential property located to the southern side of the street. It's set within an ample plot, as you can see from the red edge. To the west of the site is the Somerset Rural Life Museum, and to the east is the Rifleman's Pub, which is also a Grade 2 listed building. All of the neighbours are made up of residential properties. The dwelling itself dates back to around 17th century, according to the listed building, although the applicant's submitted heritage statement does reference that the property may have links as early as the 12th century. It's noted within both the report that's been submitted by the applicant and by the Heritage Officer that there have been some alterations and extensions made to the property. Some have been carried out sympathetically, some not so sympathetically, unfortunately. So looking at the proposal, it's planning permission and listed building consent for the erection of a rear extension to the building, along with some internal alterations. As part of the works, there is a rear single-storey extension which will be removed. The proposal, this is the existing site as the building exists at the moment. The proposal will involve the removal of this lean-to section, which currently makes up the kitchen and I believe a utility room and hall. That will be removed. There are also other alterations internally made for removal of internal walls, alterations to windows. There is a chimney breast within the bedroom 4, which will be removed as part of the proposal. The replacement extension that is proposed will be, as you can see, close to a 2-storey extension, going just below the 2-storey rear outrigger at the back. It will span in terms of its footprint close to the parameters of the existing building, and will just slightly be stepped in from those boundary lines and will effectively square off the building in terms of its footprint. It will provide ground floor accommodation and will allow for kitchen, open plan kitchen, diner area for the occupants of the property. I'll just show you quickly some pictures of the application property as it stands at the moment. That's the rear, including the single-storey extension that is to be removed. The window that you can see here is a point of contention, which I will touch on later. It's considered to be an original feature of the building, and this will be removed as part of the proposal and changed to a French doors to allow access from an office into the kitchen. Windows throughout the property will also be replaced to be hardwood frames. There is no objection to the alteration to these windows in itself. Conservation officer comments have been received and they raise objections to the loss of the significant historic fabric. And as I touched on, the removal of that window, the removal of a chimney breast at the first floor. The council consider that there is no real justification given for the loss of these historic fabric features. And as I mentioned earlier, that there have been some loss of original features throughout the life of the building, and so the council don't want to see any more original features being lost from the property. There are also some concerns in terms of the extension of its size and scale, that it does block the legibility of the existing footprint and the elevations of the host building. There is, as a design side, back to that slide, a gable end that's proposed, including a chimney stack and Gothic archway door in the eastern elevation of the extension. The concern raised with that is that it is quite a heavy structure that, when viewed from that side, will remove the legibility completely of the existing building. It is noted that on the rear elevation there is a much more sympathetic glasswork and light touch aspect that's being utilised for that. Okay, so we have received public comments from Glastonbury Town Council, as I said, recommended approval. At the time of the application process, no comments were received from neighbouring properties, although I am aware that there are some now received as part of this committee agenda that will be read out by the Vice Chair shortly. In terms of the concerns and the assessment that we have made as officers and conservation officers, in the first instance, the concern is that there is a lot of historic fabric, the chimney stack, the windows, and the rear elevation, the rear single-storey elevation. The policy that we look to in terms of the NPPF is paragraph 213, which states that any harm to or loss to the significance of a designated heritage asset, should require and convincing justification. Unfortunately, the council don't consider that has been provided in this instance. The second reason that we have concerns is as I touched upon, is the size and the scale of the extension, the design elements, the heavy gable end on the eastern side. We feel that whilst what will result for the applicant will be a better and improved living conditions internally, the concern is that we have to balance that against a heritage hat and the heritage policies that are in place, and we feel that there will be harm to the heritage asset at the medium end, and as such we are recommending refusal on those grounds. As I mentioned earlier, we've discussed it two applications within one. It's a listed building application and a householder application. So there are two recommended reasons for refusal on the listed householder application, but there is only one, which is the second bullet point there for the listed building application. So we are sympathetic to the applicant's plight that what they would gain from this proposal is an open plan kitchen, much better internal living accommodation. But we have, as I say, we have to balance that against the heritage policies that we are governed by. Any questions? Do you want?
Thank you, Emma. We'll, I think if I'm, forgive me, this is the first time I've chaired this meeting. I think we go to the speakers first before we have councillor questions. Thank you. We have in front of us a number of people who wish to speak. I think the first one is Tim Bowles.
Hi there, my name's Tim Bowles. I live at 35 Chilcross Street, which is opposite the Rifleman's Arms, so adjacent to number 2. I've lived there for about 28 years now, and I'm also a gas safe registered engineer, and I have done some work at the house in the past. Now, the biggest problem with the house, I would say, is the kitchen not being big enough for the family to both, for any of them to have more than one person in it cooking at the time. Also, the heating system is not good enough. The pipework is, I would say, around 50 years old, all external on the walls and all imperial pipework with compression joints on. So when the heating was updated last time, the previous owner didn't want to change all the pipework. So obviously this would have caused a big job anyway to do it. So without having a pressurized system in the house, there isn't enough capacity in the flow to get the heat up more than about 15 or 16 degrees throughout the house in the winter, which isn't really, suitable for a family house. Being an open vented system at the moment as well, it takes its inflow of water from the water main outside, which is at the moment being flushed every 3 months, I think, to get rid of the sediment. So the whole heating system is full of this sediment from the water main. Obviously, is another problem which needs to be addressed because it's just full of silt. In the future, obviously, for getting a heat pump or something, all of the pipework in the whole house would need to be replaced to make it big enough to. Sorry, to make it big enough to enable green energy to be used, to heat the house and to get hot water. At the moment, the electricity or the wiring in the house isn't sufficient to get wiring up to the boiler room, where there's a water tank which hasn't even got a an immersion heater on it. So in the winter, well, throughout the year, if there's a problem with the heating system, which there quite often is due to the problems of flow throughout the system, they don't have hot water quite often. So
Time's up.
oh, sorry.
Sorry?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so likewise, the whole heating system needs to be updated, you know. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, we'll now move on to the second supporter, Andy Stitch. I have a note which I will read out from him. The 3 minutes per speaker will still apply to any person I read out. I will try to read them as quickly as possible to ensure I sit within their 3 minutes. This one is from Andy Stitch, who lives in 8 Chilkwell Street. I'm acting as a supporter for the proposal on the planning applications 2024/0415 HSE and 2024/0416 LBC. I can confirm that I have viewed the plans and discussed the proposals for works with the occupant and have no objections whatsoever to the project. I feel the proposal is both complementary to the property, which is in need of works to update, and bring the building forward, and sensitive to the surrounding area. I'm also confident that the project will run with consideration to both neighbours, of which I'm one, and those who pass through the vicinity. Thank you. That is the first of the public speakers. We then move on to the second one, and this is Patricia DeSangle. Forgive if I have mispronounced your name. You have 3 minutes from when you start speaking.
Won't need it. My name's Patricia DeSangelis, and I'm actually speaking on behalf of my husband and myself. We live at 41 Chilkwell Street, which is opposite the Rifleman's Arms and diagonal to number 2. We know Tom, the owner, we know Rupert, we know the property very well, and the property's already been chopped up badly inside previously before they moved in. It's not a very good livable space. The extension that's already there, which is a 1970s extension, is not great. And all it is literally breeze block put on the back. We've seen a lot of Rupert's other repair work, and it's exceptionally good. And it's making the whole street look much better. So we have no objections whatsoever to them pulling this 70s bit down and putting a nice extension. I think it will enhance the property, quite frankly. And what's more, most people can't see it from the front or the side, what they're doing. So, you know, it's not a detriment to anybody else. It looks like it's going to be, it looks like it's going to be really nice because we have discussed the plans. So I'm all for it, and so's my husband. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll now move on to the next one on the agenda. And I just wonder if somebody could provide me with a microphone which doesn't have a missing foot. I might not make quite so much noise. Thank you. Great. Another person I'm going to read out their statement, and this one is reasonably long, so I will try again when.
Who had the wobbly one? Swapped. Okay. The wobbly one.
Again, I will have 3 minutes on behalf of Sue Redfern. When you're ready. Thank you. Dear members of the Planning Committee, I'm writing to express my support for the planning application 2024/0415 HSE and 2024/0416 LBC. Requests to build a single-storey extension on their listed property at 2 2 Chilkwell Street in Glastonbury, Somerset, BA6 8DB. I believe that this extension will bring several benefits to our community while respecting the historical significance of the property. First and foremost, this extension will enhance the living space for Tom Dudridge and his family, allowing them to maintain their family in a home that meets their needs. As we all know, many families are looking to stay in their current homes, and this extension will enable them to do so without compromising the property's character. The proposed design of the extension makes perfect sense in relationship to the existing structure. It reflects the needs of the family and will ensure the property remains a functional and welcoming home for the years to come. It's evident that Tom Dudridge possesses a deep appreciation for the property and the neighbourhood, and they have the right intentions to improve and maintain the house. Secondly, the design of the proposed extension has been carefully considered to complement the existing structure and preserve the historical integrity of the listed building. It is essential to maintain the charm and heritage that our community is known for. I'm confident that this plan will achieve that goal. The proposed materials are in harmony with the original building, ensuring that the extension will blend into the surrounding landscape. Additionally, I'm excited about plans to install new hardwood windows, as this will not only enhance the aesthetic appeal of the property, but also ensure it is well maintained. It's encouraging to see someone cares about their home and their community, investing in improvements that will benefit all of us. Furthermore, it's worth noting the extensions like this one contribute to the overall improvement of our neighbourhood. Well-designed and well-maintained properties enhance property values, make our community more attractive to potential buyers and visitors alike. This proposal is an investment in our area's future. Additionally, the single-storey nature of the extension minimises the impact on the visual aspects of the property and the surrounding area, reducing concerns about overshadowing or overdevelopment. This consideration reflects a thoughtful approach to the neighbourhood dynamics. I would also like to emphasise that the extension will not disturb my view, as it was designed in a way that it will not be visible from my property. Moreover, I do not foresee any disruption to my business, St Anne's Bed and Breakfast, or the daily activities resulting from these works. Finally, I would urge the committee to consider...
Time is up.
Thank you. I will finish the sentence. Finally, I'd urge the committee to consider the positive relationship that this kind of development fosters within our community. Thank you. That was Suzanne Redfern, and we now move on to a speaker from the Parish Council, Councillor Lindsay McDonald. Is she? Oh, sorry, Lindsay, you arrived. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Lindsay McDougall, Glastonbury Town Councillor and a resident of Chilkwell Street. I'm speaking in support of this application. During my time on Mendip Planning Board, we had a number of applications like this for listed and heritage buildings, in particular double glazing, which were usually recommended for refusal for their reflective qualities, a detail hard to justify considering the public good achievable. Whilst this is a more complex project than windows, and by the way, the windows are okayed in this application, I would say the reasons for refusal come from a similarly dogmatic approach. There is a clear benefit and amenity to the owner in light, warmth, and general improvements to the fabric of the building, and minimal impact on its listed building status and heritage building neighbours. First of all, the original recommendation for refusal from the Heritage Officer, Jane Baldy, was made without a site visit from her. It seems this initial recommendation is the reason this application has become stuck in this system for over a year. Without a site visit, you would not see that this site is secluded behind 8-foot walls and other buildings associated with this property. You cannot see the Rural Life Museum or the Rifleman's Pub. which are the two heritage listed buildings that form the context of this site, from the garden. They are both screened by mature trees. Likewise, the proposed building line would not be visible from the Rural Life or the Rifleman's. This is important to the degree of non-substantial harm that might be caused, which is therefore negligible. When it comes to the design of the building, 2 Chilkwell Street is in serious need of bringing into the 21st century as a habitable building. Medieval buildings can be low-ceilinged and quite dark, and I understand this particular building doesn't even have properly functioning central heating. A south-facing conservatory-style kitchen, increasing the building footprint by less than 10%, would seem to be an excellent improvement, providing warmth and light and a sociable kitchen space which can be shared with the family and where you can entertain guests in the modern way. It is acknowledged that this property has an important heritage building neighbour in the Rural Life Museum and Barn. However, it is misleading to suggest that the other buildings are prestigious within large plots. The pub on the other side is set in a large car park, no garden, and further buildings down Chilkwell Street have been described as an eclectic mix of styles and mostly quite small cottagey style terraced houses. There is a further medieval cottage opposite, which has been much neglected. I am a neighbour in Chilkwell Street as well as a town councillor in Glastonbury, and I welcome all projects to improve this street, which is blighted by a very busy county freight route in the A361. The officer states that extension should be subservient, low-key in style and should not overwhelm or detract from the original form. The proposed extension is lower in height and extends the building footprint only modestly, which is required to provide modern living space. The Gothic arch door, incidentally, can be removed or changed by condition, so let's not get distracted by this minor detail. In all, I would recommend that the board approve this application that has been waiting in the wings for a decision far too long. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Because we're considering 2 planning applications, there's 2 opportunities for the parish council to speak. And I have a second one from Councillor Loka Bandu, and I will read it out. I'm writing in support of the planning and listed building applications currently before you at 2 Chilkwell Street. I have no personal connection with the owner or agent. I have, however, visited the property and have been shown around it in detail and would like to state I consider the plans, as explained to me, should greatly benefit this very tired but important listed building. Although the house may be listed as a heritage asset, it can best be described at present as poky, dark and damp. And I believe unless the owner, whoever they may be, is allowed to make significant investment in it, it will remain in a state of decay and unloveliness. It's very clear to me that the new owner cares greatly about the property and is prepared to invest significant sums of money in its refurbishment. For reasons which are unclear to me, the planning application has lain undecided for over a year now, and I would urge the planning committee to do their part by resolving the application as soon as possible. And that's from Councillor Lokabandu, Town Councillor for St Edmunds Ward. Right, we have three more speakers. The next one is a Somerset councillor, and it's Councillor Nick Cottle.
Chair, will we have support of 5 as well? Because
I beg your pardon?
Support of 5 from the Rural Life Museum. Will we have that one as well?
They have withdrawn.
We have withdrawn. Thank you.
My apologies. I didn't realise it was on the list to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my turn just to say a little bit. Obviously, I'm withdrawing after I've made my comments. So I won't listen to Tom or Rupert, or I can. No, I will. I can stay, and I will stay and listen to Tom and Rupert's. But okay, this is my opinion, and I've been the ward councillor there for 30 years, or near enough, for the St Edmunds ward as a Glastonbury Town councillor, and that is a very, very prominent building in that road. If you've all been to Glastonbury from the Shepton Mallet area, you will have seen it. Okay, you cannot see this what is proposed from the road or anywhere else at all. It is completely hidden behind. The work that Rue here has carried out has been to the highest standard that I can see so far. I've been for a good look around the house, the property, and I've known the property for longer than 30 years. And I would recommend, having listened to what everybody has said so far, and I'm sure that Rue and Tom will have other good things to say, that this I would recommend for approval without a doubt. I don't think it's going to cause any harm whatsoever, and I think it's a good design, and I think it will. There's been no complaints whatsoever from any local people at all to me, and that's unusual in Glastonbury because I normally get a full post box. So I'm just sort of saying there. So you can make your own minds up. Obviously, I'm not really trying to influence, but I'm just saying it as it is. This is a good project with a well-intentioned person who's purchased the house, and it will be a very good job. And nobody has come to me with any complaints or concerns. Okay, there you go.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Cottle. We now move on to the applicant, who unfortunately is not with us this afternoon, but I have a statement I'm going to read out. And again, it's a fairly lengthy one, so I'll read it very promptly so I can get to the very end of it, as it's particularly the applicant. But bear with me. Right, Tom Dudridge, if you can start the timer, please. This is a statement by Tom Dudridge, owner of Barnside, in support of his application for the planning permission to replace kitchen extension and the modern conservatory on this beautiful listed property. I'm a father of 4 girls, 17 to 23, 2 of whom live with me at Barnside. I have 2 stepchildren in my current relationship, and I also the second of 6 siblings, so I have lots of nieces and nephews. My connection to Glastonbury dates back to my teenage years when I started attending the festival in Pilton. In 2020, I purchased the house, 71 Chickwell Street, with my then wife, originally as a second home. When Barnside came onto the market, it inspired us to fully move the family to Glastonbury, so we purchased the property despite its poor condition, with the view to restoring it over time and extending the kitchen to create a family home that would accommodate us all. Given that we are now next door to the Rural Life Museum and next door but one to Glastonbury Abbey, and also because the building is listed, I decided from the outset that we would restore the property of the highest possible standard, what I call museum quality. Our work so far, urgent maintenance and repair of the dilapidated barns and one of the outer walls, is a testament to this approach. Whilst Barnside is a beautiful and historic property, it's not easy to live in. In winter, it's almost impossible to heat, even with our boiler at full tilt. I struggled to get the internal temperature above 14 degrees Celsius during the cold spell. The windows are drafty and single glazed, the roof is not insulated, the floors on the ground floor are concrete poured in the 70s. The electrical system is from the 1970s. Early 1970s. Upstairs, there are modern dividing walls, creating 5 very small bedrooms and a corridor with a single bathroom in a space suited to fewer rooms. Full drop windows have been filled in, leaving a very small slit windows in order to accommodate the roof of the kitchen, which is a new brackets 20th century addition. Downstairs, there's no natural heart of the house as the modern kitchen would normally serve. The kitchen is a modern single-storey lean-to which is dilapidated and has no room for a breakfast table or any kind of seating. One of the 3 reception rooms currently used as study has no window to the exterior. The modern 1980s conservatory is essentially unusable and is causing damage to the wall within. Our proposal, which is to replace the kitchen extension and conservatory, neither of which have any historic significance, with a single-storey kitchen suitable for modern family living, will transform the house. The extension will not affect or be visible from the road, from the pub next door, or by any neighbour. it will be clear that it is an extension using different materials from the rest of the house, glass, oak frame and stone, contrasting the rendered brick of the house. Right, I'm going to finish a sentence and actually complete one more paragraph as I am reading about the applicant. But at the same time, it will complement the house, the beautiful grounds and the barns that we intend to put back into use, having invested in repairing the stonework and the roofs. Once completed, I will have a family home fit for myself, my family and the school-aged children, my teenagers and my older children, in due course their children, and for my extended family. I expect to retire and remain in Glasbury and to welcome my children's families as they grow. And I think I've covered the final points which he has indicated in his statement. Thank you. Right, we now move on to the agent, Rupert Ellingham. Again, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Rupert Ellingham. I'm the agent and project manager for this project. My history in restoration and older listed buildings dates back to 40 years. I did an apprenticeship, did a journeyman in oak, masters in restoration, carpentry, stone and brickwork. In regard to this property, we put the application in, designing it largely from the Rural Life Museum's aspect. I was sat for quite a while at the gate in the pathway, looking back at the property with the general public's view in mind. I then came onto the property to be as sympathetic as I possibly could, but also looking at the requirements of my client. The application went in, it was successful at the town. I had a meeting with Rebecca Burren, who represented the conservation side of things. We had a very in-depth conversation, which was very successful on site. Many compliments on both sides with her leaving comment. She was getting in the car saying that she was looking forward to seeing the project completed and coming back to visit. Unfortunately, that was then superseded by Jane Bolin, of which I've contested an email that I received, which was negative and completely conflicted to Rebecca's meeting with me. And I understand that other actions were taken following that. In regard to the actual property, the only real thing that exists left of the original build is the exterior walls. The internal was ripped out in the 70s, unfortunately, and rebuilt with concrete block and cement, and then spread with plaster. The wiring was done. I actually know a gentleman who was an apprenticeship at that time who actually did the wiring, and the central heating system, as it's already been pointed out, was also put in. The system has been filled with the sludge from the main water feed, so therefore we don't have any activity in the lower section of the heating system. If we were to try and flush it, bleed it, we've attempted. So it's not like we aren't making efforts. The proposal is to enable the family to be able to have a space which is following the lines of a contemporary design. It has got a stone gable, but that's sympathetic to the other buildings that are within the permit of the parameter of the actual property itself. It is also to the exterior walls and to the visual point of any aspect of somebody looking around in the general area, i.e. Chipwell Street, the Royal Life Museum, etc., etc. The oak frame is simple, but yet structurally very, very sound, and the ability to then introduce a glaze at the lower level from where the gutter line would be, hence the rear would be a valley, a small pitch coming up and over to bring in the complementary pan tile. So in your visual aspect, there would be no difference between the roof behind, and therefore the ridge would just disappear within the complex because of the materials being used would be recycled tiles. The glaze would then enable the light to project back into the building. The other aspects, the gable door, we've already discussed that, and it's not a hanging issue. We're quite happy to turn around and put in a normal rectangular door frame with nice coins around it and a decent head. That's not a hanging issue by any accounts. Okay. Can I just make one last? So in regard to this aspect, I have worked tremendously hard on this project for the last 15 months, and yet we sit here. Yet in regard to other projects that are in our vicinity, the one at the old vicarage, for example, in Boltonsborough, which I worked on 5 years ago for that owner, that didn't even make the chair of planning. So I don't understand why we are sat here, but I thank you very much for your time.
Fine, thank you very much indeed. Councillor, to be recorded, Councillor Cottle has left the room. Thank you. I believe now we'll move on to the opportunity for councillors to make any comments and ask any questions of the officer. Who would like to kick off the conversation? Martin.
Thank you. It's the officer's job to draw our attention to the fact that some buildings are historic and listed, and we got a terrible feedback on this tonight. Yeah, but it's also very loud. Yeah. But we've got feedback coming from Nick all the time. It's like the whole system is up too loud. I mean, I'm backing right off here, but I'll continue if I may. It's the officer's job to alert us to any likely conflicts where it comes to historic buildings, but I think we've heard enough information on this particular issue to feel confident, at least I do, that we should be accepting this proposal. And I therefore put forward I'd like to suggest that we accept this as a proposal and vote it through.
Councillor Hart, you came into the meeting late, and I don't believe you can participate in the voting nor put a proposal forward.
Oh, does that mean
I'm willing to take advice as to whether that's appropriate.
That is correct, Chair.
I'm sure you'll find somebody else.
I'd like to second Martin's proposal that we accept this planning, approve this planning application.
Okay, I have that motion. I will let other councillors speak and then we'll come back to your proposal in due course. Councillor Hart, I will allow you to speak within the meeting unless I'm told otherwise, but you can't vote as we've just appeared. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair, that is
Thank
correct.
you. Councillor Hart.
So really, just briefly to say, I can't see how this can do anything other than improve what you see when you drive down the main drag there into or out of the town. And from everything we've heard from the people speaking, and even having read everything that's been put together by the officers, I can't see a problem with this going ahead. I can only see that it's going to improve things. Thank you for letting me speak. Despite I did actually message the chair to say that I would be 15 minutes late, but maybe he didn't get it. Thank you very much.
I think you will find that regardless of messaging, the formal rule is you need to be in the room for the entire discussion. Thank you. Councillor Lovell.
Yeah, technical question of the officer. I can't see where the chimney stack that's to be removed is on the plans. Could that be demonstrated, please? Thank you.
So the chimney stack which is to be removed is from bedroom 4 on the first floor. It's this aspect here. The above ridge height is to be retained, the stack above ridge height. So so it's just the internal works, the removal of the actual internal breast from the room itself, works above the roof. The actual chimney stack there is being retained as part of the proposal.
Did you hear that answer in full? Thank you. Can I just remind everyone, we seem to have the electronics not helping us this afternoon. Can everyone make sure you have your phone removed from the microphone? And secondly, that you have your mic on only when you're speaking. It will help matters, I hope. Thank you.
And also any devices, if they've got a laptop, that must be muted as well. Got their own laptop with them.
Okay. Is everyone clear on that? Eden, if you're not linked into the meeting. Councillor Ashton.
In the presentation, you made reference to a window, but you didn't follow up with any details of why it was relevant, or could you possibly just fill us in on that?
Yeah. Yeah, the window which is to be removed is on the ground floor here. I will show you a photograph of how it looks at the moment. This is the window which is enclosed inside the conservatory extension at the moment. The comments from the conservation officer are that that is an existing window from part of the building, and to remove that, they are putting or proposing to put a French door, so removing that opening, the legibility of that opening for a much larger addition.
Yes, I have one follow-up question. A great play has been made on the heating system here. What relevance in planning does a heating system that doesn't work in the current building actually play from this application? Really, I don't see the relevance here.
Yeah, Councillor Ashton, the proposals actually don't make any reference at all to the heating system. So, whilst the speaker's made some comments for you to consider, not strictly relevant to the assessment of the application.
Thank you. Any other questions at this stage? I would just like to make a couple of observations. And for those who know me and my background, I don't think you'll be very surprised to say that when you're altering a listed building, part of it, of course, is the external appearance of the building and who can see it and the impact it has on the conservation area and the landscape. The other part is it is about preserving a listed building in its integrity. This is partly 14th century. We have a Grade 1 listed barn not very far away, and we have a number, as Glastonbury has a real richness of old buildings. But this is a significant building. I fully appreciate that you need to upgrade the wiring and the piping and the heating system. And I'm sure these can be done within the context of a listed building. I also am correct that the planning officer indicated that changing of the layout on the first floor wasn't an issue, including losing the chimney.
The removal of the chimney is considered a matter of loss of original historic fabric, but the removal of the internal walls, which are much later, to create a more open space at the first floor, we're happy with that, but it is just the removal of that chimney from bedroom 4.
Okay, so a number of the issues which are trying to be addressed can be addressed within the context of an application, without an application, as the councillor indicated. I really feel uncomfortable that we're putting great stress on the modern living of a large kitchen when we know that particularly in other parts of the country, open plan living is now regarded as extremely difficult because of people working from home and whatever. So I think one needs to judge applications not on the moment and the fashion is unkind, but the trend, and actually look at guarding this really beautiful 14th, 17th, 18th century building. I must admit, I do share the hiccuping over putting in a Gothic door into a building, which there is no evidence that it should be Gothic in the first place. But I think the agent indicated that they were prepared to amend that if needed and put in a more sympathetic one. So I just want to make these comments because I do think, it's so easy to be taken on board by trying to improve an individual family's life vis-a-vis the long-term preservation of what is a very significant building in that area. I don't have any other questions of planning officer at this time. I'm sorry, once you've spoken, you can't come back. I apologise for that, but the rules are such. Yeah, I'm afraid that isn't possible at this stage. Right, any other comments, or shall we take the motion in front of us? Anyone want to speak?
Do we not need some reasons for going against the officer's recommendation? So the committee needs to come up with some reasons for. Yeah.
For that, thank you for that guidance. So we have a motion in front of us with reasons to go against the officer's recommendation. Could we have some grounds for doing so? And Councillor Ham?
I was just going to ask a question. Actually, at what date was this building listed?
When was the building listed? Do we know?
It was in terms of the actual listed date, or
Yeah.
when does the listing description consider that it's originated from?
Yeah, when was it actually became it listed?
It became listed 1970. You might be able to help me here. It was in the 1970s. I will have to double check the exact date.
The reason for asking is, I actually live in a listed building, which was actually changed dramatically before it was even listed. So a lot of the features were lost even before it was listed. You were talking about pouring concrete and all sorts of things. Did all that happen before it was listed? And therefore, are we actually altering a building that's already been altered? Or is it a true listed building?
So we just found out it was listed in 1974. In terms of the works that have been carried out, I'm unsure of the actual date of those internal works, or I believe that some were carried out in the early 1900s. Is that correct? 1978. So it was after listing then.
I think the interesting thing about listing is what was listed. Do you want to actually spell out the terms of the listing, which probably is more relevant?
Yeah.
Okay, so the listing description outlines that it was probably a 17th century building altered later, 2-storey stone, fronted with colour wash brick, pantile roof, parapet and gable ends, eaves, 4 windows with segmented heads and keystones, 3 light wood casements, few glazing bars, 1 gable end has 2 light stone mullion windows, took the ground floor, 4 panel doors under a modern porch. And that's the extent of the listing description that we've got.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything more, Councillor Ham? I think maybe for clarity within that listing, what is being amended?
So in terms of the points that we have contention with, we've already outlined that the windows that are being removed, being altered, we're happy with those changes to the hardwood casement windows. They're being done in a sensitive way. The material palette is there, but in terms of the loss of the historic fabric, which we've outlined, it isn't particularly detailed in the listed description.
Thank you for that clarity. Any other comments, or can we go to the motion? No. Councillor Dimmery, do you want to propose your motion again and perhaps give us some reasons for going against the officer recommendation?
Yeah, on balance, I think that I would propose that we accept this on the basis that the building has had previous developments which probably haven't suited that particular building particularly well, and this is replacement for those. And on balance, I think it makes it a more habitable dwelling and a more functional dwelling that doesn't impact on the area in any disadvantageous way.
Are you still happy to second that? Are the officers clear as to the reasons for going against the objection? Thank you. Right, we'll take that to a vote. Councillor Dimery is proposing that we go against officer recommendation and accept this application, and Councillor Sully is seconding it. Could I have a show of hands, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those against? 3. Abstentions? And we note Councillor Hart is not voting.
You've now got to vote for the application for listed buildings.
Thank you. We then move on to the item next on the agenda, which is item 6. And again, do I have a proposal to go against officer recommendation on this one? It's the listed building. One.
I propose we go against officer recommendation.
The reasons again are the same.
On balance, yes, the same.
Thank you. Could I have a show of hands, please? No. Councillor Hart, the two were made clear at the very beginning of this discussion that they were going to be considered together. Right, we have 5 people voting for, and could I have any voting against the motion? And no abstentions. So thank you very much indeed. Both of them are now passed. Thank you.
Just obviously because the recommendation came to you for refusal, you'll note there aren't any planning conditions in the event that obviously you've approved it, because that's not how we present the recommendations to you. You've obviously recommended approval. In terms of issuing a decision for approval, we would normally include conditions, and the baseline we would include is a time frame and a list of plans that were approved. It's just were there any conditions that you wanted to be added to those? Again, you've talked about obviously the design detail for the external side door. Again, you didn't seem to be raising that as a concern when you were voting. So I think my advice would be based on the way in which you voted, you would be content with the 2 standard conditions for both permissions.
If I can answer that, yeah, I think I would be, and I would trust the officer's judgment to ensure that the extension was made in the appropriate manner to suit, in keeping with the property.
Okay, I think we have are people content with that? That is a rather late addition to the discussion, to delegate to the officer the detail around the door. Yeah, are people content with that? Okay, thank you for
Chair,
that.
sorry, can I just clarify, was that we're happy with the Gothic arch door and just to condition the plans as submitted? Was that the recommendation made by members? Sorry, just to clarify.
Councillor Sully.
I'm starting to feel just a little bit, with respect, just slightly uncomfortable, because we've done the vote, and I feel if we start to pick apart, obviously we believe in the credit integrity and your expertise, but I think if we start to half-heartedly present conditions when we've already had a discussion, so I think we just leave it as we approve the planning application. Thank you.
Yep, people content. I must admit, I feel more comfortable with that, given that we have voted on the issue. Okay, thank you very much. everyone, and thank you for all the speakers who have come here this afternoon. Would somebody like to get Councillor Cottle in to continue the meeting? And thank you. We'll just take a moment or so.
Chair, oh,
Certainly, I'm about to
Can I-
hand over
can
to
I-
Councillor Cottle, but you wish to.
Yeah. I can't hear you. Yeah,
Yes.
carry on.
Okay, we'll have a 3-minute break for anybody before we move on to the next item then.
He's a relieved man, eh?
Hmm?
He's a relieved man.
Stupid decision. It's a bloody stupid decision. It's nothing to do with whether he can be seen or not. It's all to do.
Are you going to be going out the room, Susie? Well, if you're very, very quick. Anybody else missing as well? Martin. Oh, he's yapping. Okay, Susie, you're regaining your seat, and we're moving on to agenda number 7, and that is Cemetery Lane Street. And let's fire on with the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Jenny's going to make the presentation, members, but just before she does, just like to clarify a point for you to consider when you're making your judgments and your assessment. You can see there the description development for the application is erection of 33 affordable homes with associated access, parking and landscaping. You'll see from the report pack that the recommendation is for approval, and one aspect of the approval is the agreement to enter into a Section 106 agreement to secure various mitigation packages. And one of those mitigation package is the affordable housing aspect. And you can see that it requires 30% affordable housing. Again, in reading the report, you'll see that effectively in completing the planning balance of the assessment of issues, although the application and the applicant is proposing 33 affordable homes, your assessment should be on the basis of securing a local plan policy compliant amount of affordable homes, which would be 30%. So again, just to draw that distinction for you, in case some of you have read the papers and thought, hang on, the application is proposing 33 affordable homes, but the recommendation is only to secure 30% of those as affordable homes. That is correct, and that's the way that we have to assess the application, taking into account the policy allocation for the site in your development plan, and then the guidance in the NPPF about securing planning obligations. Right, I'll now hand over to Jenny.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Okay, no, I'm not sure what happened there, just disappeared. Let me try again. Okay, so this is an application for land at Cemetery Lane in Street. It's just to the south of Cemetery Lane, and the proposal is for the erection of 33 affordable homes, associated access, parking and landscaping. And as explained by Simon, although the description of development is 100% affordable, only 30% can be secured through a legal agreement. So in terms of the location of the site, so the red line is the boundary of Street and Walton off to the west. And the yellow outline is the site itself, so it's to the north of Street. But it is within the red line, so it's within the development limits of Street itself. So again, you can see the red line of the existing development limits and the yellow line of the site. So it is fully within the development limits of Street. To the east of the site is the existing cemetery. To the kind of southeast is Woodsbatch play area or playing fields. And then you've got Portland Road, I believe, to the south. And so this is the red line of the site, just to give you a better view. The site is also allocated as part of Local Plan Part 2 under ST2. So it is an allocated site which for provision of a minimum of 32 dwellings, and this proposal is for 33, so that meets that requirement. So this is the proposed site plan. It is a full application, so it's not an outline, so all the details are proposed at this stage. See 33 dwellings, mixture of 3 terrace blocks, semi-detached, and some apartment blocks as well. So the access is from Portland Road to the south. There's some green space near the access as you enter the site with a suds basin as well, and some additional planting. It's also, there's an existing pedestrian link from the site through to Woodsbatch playing fields, just in this south corner. It's proposed that that's going to be retained, and there's a condition for the details of that access as well. So there'll be a pedestrian link through from the site to the playing fields next door. Okay, so the next few slides are the proposed elevations and floor plans of the plots. So you can see, so there's some gable ends and some straight ends just to add some interest to the design. The materials are a mixture of red and buff brickwork with red and red-brown tiles. So again, more elevations, so plots 8 to 11 and 12 to 14. Okay, and further elevations and floor plans, the block of 3 terraces and the semi-detached. And fine, I think these are, one more set of elevations and floor plans. So these are semi-detached on the southern side of the site, I believe. So this will give you a better idea of what the proposal will look like once fully developed. So you've got some planting between the properties as well, and there's planting obviously existing trees behind. Given that it's on the edge of street itself, there's quite a lot of greenery surrounding the site, which is supposed to be retained, especially towards the cemetery side of the site. So the A to A, is the elevation along the main road through the site, looking north. C to C, the bottom street scene, will be the again the main road, but looking south towards Portland Road, and then B to B, which is the middle street scene, will be looking towards the cemetery. In a proposed material plan, as previously explained, it's proposed red-brown tiles, and then brown tiles, red brick and buff brick, and this key just gives you an idea of which properties are proposed for which material. They've been scattered around the site to make it a bit more of an interest. In terms of active travel, so it's recognised the site is on the edge of street, although it is within the development limits. This will give you an idea of the location in comparison to services within street itself. So as explained, Woodsbatch is right next door, so literally right through the pedestrian gates. Sainsbury's is just to the southwest, so over here where my cursor is, again, very short distance. Clark's Village towards the centre of street, so I believe that's the green, this green marker, Clark's Village. And you've got the High Street, which is kind of represented by where the post office is, sign here where my cursor is, and then some schools and the college as well, which is Story College, which is out by the Holy Trinity Church, which is here in Brown. Yeah, and some various schools. So all are within about less than 30 minutes walking or less than 10 minutes cycling distance. So it's has good links through to the services within the town. So this is the proposed access onto Portland Road. It's been demonstrated that 43-metre visibility displays can be achieved in both directions, which is compliant with 30-mile-per-hour manual for streets requirement. And the swept path analysis, which shows that the site can be accessed by large refuse vehicles. And just to clarify that fire tenders are smaller than refuse vehicles. So we also do have swept path analysis for fire tenders, but if a refuse vehicle can access the site fully, then they'll be able to also. There are biodiversity enhancements proposed. Just to clarify, this was submitted in 2021, so it was well before the requirement for 10% BNG was introduced in early 2024. So it's exempt from providing the 10% enhancements. However, there are some enhancements proposed through the integrated bird boxes, bat boxes, bee bricks, and holes in the boundaries for hedgehogs to move through, including there's also replacement hedgerow along this green strip to the north and east of the site. And the trees along this eastern boundary are proposed to be retained as well. So that's the boundary with the cemetery. So some photos of the site. These are taken from the cemetery looking west towards the site itself. So these are the trees that I just mentioned that are proposed to be retained. The red arrow down here kind of gives you an idea of where the photos were taken from. So you stood in the cemetery looking towards the site, and you've got the houses of Portland Road in the background. So this again was taken from the cemetery side of the hedge, just to give you an idea of what the site looks like. It's been unused for quite a while. It's just kind of growing up with a lot of scrubland on there. So this is the view along Cemetery Lane itself. The site will be on the left of this picture behind these trees. And the picture to the right, that is the corner. So again, from Cemetery Lane, but looking through a corner existing kind of access or field gate, I think it was at some point, onto the site, and the houses in the background are Portland Road. So this is from Portland Road itself. This will be where the proposed access is. These trees, I believe, are supposed to be retained. They are shown on the site plan. The access will come through. This is an existing field gate, again, on the corner of Cemetery Lane and Portland Road. They just give you an idea of the site. You see it's very overgrown currently. And these pictures are taken from, they're taken from Woodsbatch playing field. So this one in the in the bottom left corner is actually Woodsbatch playing field with the site beyond that hedgerow at the back. So the site is beyond that hedgerow. And the top picture is the existing pedestrian link between site and Woodsbatch, and that link's proposed to be retained, but obviously it will be made more formal and upgraded, the scheme. So the recommendation is for approval, subject to conditions and a legal agreement. The legal agreement would cover the management of public open space and the SUDs, the provision of 30% affordable housing, and a financial contribution towards off-site public open space, which would include a LEAP and a mugger. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So next we'll move on to the speakers, and we only have two today on this one, which is divisional member first, which is Councillor Liz Lewisham, please. Thank you, Liz. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I should send apologies from Councillor Simon Carswell, also Street Division member. And I should also declare that I was formerly a Mendip District Council Cabinet member with responsibility for corporate projects and services, which included trying to move land forward for social and affordable housing. So I have known of application for some years now.
Okay, thanks for that, Liz. I think everybody's taking that on board. Yeah. Okay.
So, Chair, I'd like to say that I fully support the build of affordable homes in Street. We now have over 12,000 households on the Home Finder list for Somerset. And this site, although it appears to be away from the centre of Street, the pedestrian access that we've heard about from the officer is actually a really key part of this application, because by putting in a better path through Woods Batch, we call it Woods Batch or Portland Park. It's actually correctly the James Clark Recreation Ground from 1902, which has probably the most beautiful covenant in the whole of Somerset, being written in copper plate. And it was originally a recreation ground for the perambulation of mothers and their infants. It's now a really good park for young people. And the play park in there is one of the play parks that Street Parish Council is intending to have devolved from Somerset Council. So those facilities are right next to this site, and that makes a journey through Woods Batch to the road, which is it's not a busy road, and it goes to the underpass under the bypass, the A39, and then that links to the roads to infant, junior, secondary school and further education college, and also a school with a special unit at Brookside School. It also links, of course, to the High Street and all the facilities of Street. The use of cemetery extension land has caused concern amongst some people. I would like to point out the reducing number of burials. The last time I checked with a funeral director, they were doing something like 80% cremations compared with 20% burials. So a reducing number. And also, we will one day need an opportunity to create a new burial ground somewhere in central Somerset for the Street, Glastonbury and surrounding area. We do have a precedent of creating a new cemetery in Street, which was in the early 20th century when this current cemetery was opened. Previously, the burial ground was at the Holy Trinity Church, so it was some considerable distance away. So we have a precedent, we have a need, we have a site. It is adjacent to facilities that would be beneficial for families, particularly with younger children. Street's a great place to live and work, I would suggest. I really hope this committee can support this application. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Liz, very much. Next we have, is it Brett? Brett Spiller, please. Thank you, Brett. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I believe you've all received a copy of our briefing pack, which we distributed on behalf of Astor Group. The proposals have been a long time in the making, as you'll be aware, but finding viable phosphate solution has proved challenging, particularly for an all affordable housing scheme. But we believe we have found a solution, so are pleased to be able to put the application before you today. We first engaged with Street Parish Council, local residents and other stakeholders very much at the formative stages of the proposals back in December 2020. We also sought pre-application from officers at that time, and we very much took the feedback and the findings of the technical assessments on board, and that did result in a number of changes to the proposals. As the case officers kindly explained, we've also made a number of amendments during the course of the application being determined, very much reflecting some of the responses that we had back from consultees. Much has changed during the course of the application, but the need for affordable housing has remained a constant. You'll no doubt be familiar with the urgent need for affordable homes in Somerset and the difference that their provision can make to your local communities. The delivery of 33 new homes, in addition to those proposed at Norburns Road, which we'll come on to, would contribute towards Somerset Council's corporate priorities, as well as the spatial policies in the local plan. As explained in the officer report, the site's located northwestern edge of street and is allocated for residential development in the local plan. I was going to say a little bit more about the accessibility of the site, but I believe the previous speaker has aptly demonstrated the accessibility to services, to shops, education, employment and leisure facilities. The triangular-shaped site enjoys frontage along both Portland Road and Cemetery Lane. Mature trees, hedges also help to delineate the northern and eastern boundaries and give quite a mature setting to the site. We've looked to supplement the planting proposals, bringing street trees and other greenery into the site itself. The southern boundary backs onto the rear gardens of the houses fronting Portland Road, and as you've heard, these properties are generally two-storey, a scale which we sought to emulate. The layout and orientation of the proposed homes has been designed to safeguard amenity in terms of overlooking and privacy. And we've also thought to bring forward a variety of dwellings in terms of sizes, so dwellings of the scale of 1 to 3 bedrooms, also efficient formats, so apartments, semi-detached and short terraces, and a variety of tenures within that affordable housing mix as well, all very much tailored to meeting local needs. The Old Field Gate at the southeastern corner of the site that affords easy access to the adjoining park has also been aptly covered by the previous speaker, so I won't say any more about that. But a huge amount of work, as recognised in the officer report, has been undertaken in terms of ecological surveys. So we've redone those to make sure they're fully up to date, and the application is accompanied by a detailed lighting strategy and also a landscape ecological and management plan, which is a framework again designed to protect the ecological assets of the site. So the proposal optimises the use of the allocated site and will deliver 33 affordable homes in a highly accessible location. On behalf of Astor Group, I commend the officer report to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So that was great. Right, we will now go to the committee. Who wishes to be the first to speak? I'm looking. Rob, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. The last speaker did mention phosphates, and I'm a bit worried about the ecology report on page 52 of the agenda, where it says we have not yet achieved nutrient neutrality. So could you please update us on whether we have achieved nutrient neutrality and the phosphate so on? Thank you.
Yeah, I imagine that might have been. That might have been previous comments from our ecologists, because we have now resolved the phosphate issue. They're proposing to purchase credits from an approved credit provider.
Okay, Rob, I missed that. Yeah, brilliant. So next we come to Shane.
Yes, thank you. I'm just looking on the affordable housing. I'm still not quite clear what was being said. Although it's proposed the dwellings will be 100% affordable housing, only 30% can be secured through a legal agreement to be policy compliant. As such, application must be considered as only 30% affordable. So in practice, this would mean the deliveries of 8 homes for social rent and 2 as intermediate homes, and then what, the rest for sale? Can you help me here?
Shane, yeah.
I'm looking at affordable housing 8.55.
Yeah. Councillor Collins, again, if you look at the policies in the council's local plan, your local plan, it talks about achieving 30% affordable housing, which obviously is a figure and a target that as members you all know. Again, you heard from the last speaker. He told you who the applicant was, so you might be able to put two and two together and realise why the description of development is for 100% affordable housing, because the applicant is an affordable housing provider. But in assessing the application, what you have to do is assess it against your development plan policies, and then the guidance within the NPPF with regards to what you can reasonably secure as a planning obligation. So in assessing the application as officers, we've obviously signalled to you that we think the provision of 30% affordable housing, as you've just said, 10 units, that is a considerable and significant benefit in itself. Coupled with the fact that the site's allocated, you've got no policy conflict whatsoever in recommending approval for the officer recommendation as presented. Obviously, what it means in practice is that if plan permission is granted today, there'll be a plan permission that requires 30% of the houses to be delivered as affordable housing. If for whatever reason the applicant who has made this application doesn't build it out, it could be sold on the open market to another housing developer, and they would be required to deliver 30% affordable housing. But as you've heard, the current applicant is seeking to deliver all of the site affordable housing.
Okay, Shane, are you happy?
Yes, and the second part of my question, you talked about trees being replaced. Are there any fruit trees going in there? I'm very keen that we try and look at food security. We know that the price of food is going up. There's going to be a lot less of it about, that we start planning for the future by planting fruit trees in all developments.
Do we have an answer or? Yeah.
Yeah, we put a condition on, and normally that does include, I'll double check, and if it's not in the wording, I'll put it in, that it includes native and fruiting trees as well. But because there are bats that use their trees currently, that is something that our ecologists will be particularly keen on, that fruiting trees go back in.
Okay, I've clocked you, Barry, but we've got Ros next.
Okay, just one thing in response to Shane. As with every planning application, we've got an application in front of us from the developer. The owner of the land was Mendip District Council and is now Somerset Council. And the owner will have a relationship and a contract with the developer, whether it's this developer or another one. So and I can say this unlike the officers, is that regardless of the potential to sell on, this is a commitment from the council to have a specific applicant here in front of you who is a registered provider. So I think we're fairly assured that the ongoing relationship, contracts and the outcome will be, as stated, 33 affordable housing. The things I wanted to pick up on, and I would appreciate perhaps the officer can talk about these. One, the levels of car parking provision on the site. And then secondly, I know this has been in the making for a long, long time, but it's disappointing we actually have a travel plan with no contribution to active travel, because as the officer demonstrated, the people on this site will go on to use the paths and cycle paths around street and the ones which will be produced in the future. And so while this was developed maybe prior to the council's emphasis on active travel, but I hope going forward we will see more active travel plans which include a contribution to the development and ongoing maintenance of cycleways throughout the town, which no doubt the applicants will be very pleased to use. So going back to the question around parking provision, please.
Yeah, to answer your question about parking first. So in the highways response, it states that each dwelling is served by allocated parking spaces with 14 unallocated and visitor spaces across the site, which does largely adhere to Somerset parking strategy. Whilst it may not be up to the full figure, I think because of the sustainable location of this site, we wouldn't necessarily be insisting on the full figure of parking in compliance with the parking strategy, because the intention is that people can use public transport or meet daily needs through other means of access.
Okay, so explicitly, how many car parking places have we got on site for the 33 dwellings?
Off the top of my head, I'll have to look that up. So if you give me a few minutes, I'll have a look.
Because I didn't quite understand your answer about numbers before, but I think it's quite important that we do recognise that these dwellings, as every officer, every member who has a large amount of housing in their patch, have considerable amount of inbox activity around the inability to park on housing estates. I'll take that offline if it will make life easier, but thank you.
I'd like to come in. Oh, Roger. I'd like to come in there because surely we've got a legal thing where we've got to put X amount of parking spaces, so we must hit that, must we?
Don't have to do.
Chairman, if you look at your policy DP10 that sets out the car parking standards, it does allow in locations that are well located for future residents to be able to move about using other modes of transport to allow housing development with reduced number of car parking. I think maybe there's a misapprehension in terms of Jen's response. All of the dwellings will have dedicated car parking spaces, and there will be surplus spaces for visitors across the site. So again, be rest assured, we're not asking you to approve new houses where there won't be dedicated car parking for future occupiers.
Thank you for that clarification, Simon, because I've seen areas where that hasn't been the case and it's just caused utter chaos. Thank you. Right, Barry, I think you're next.
Two questions, Chair. The one about the car parking has been answered. Thank you. Maintenance of the site generally when these houses are built and people are living in them, is that Aster's ongoing responsibility or is it Somerset's ongoing responsibility? I'd like to know whose responsibility it is. And the second question was, can we remove, as usual, permitted development rights from these houses because they've got what I always refer to as scratchy little gardens, and the time we got a conservatory and a shed and a toy house and all this, there's no room left for doing anything in the way of, as Councillor Collins was saying, perhaps we should be thinking at least growing a little bit of our own food one way or another.
Okay, thanks. You, Simon?
Yeah, so Councillor Clark, the future maintenance of the open space and the surface water drainage area, as per normal, that will fall on the developer or a management company that the developer is required to set up. So again, that's normal practice. In terms of the highway, if the highway becomes adopted highway, it will be down to for the Somerset Council to adopt. But again, that's normal practice. in terms of permitted development rights, if you look at conditions 27 and 28, we have suggested the removal of some permitted development rights. The first one is with regards to alterations to the roofscape at 30 to 33, so that doesn't include your concern. The next one, so we've been selective where we've withdrawn the permitted development rights from future occupiers for outbuildings. So we've suggested that you consider withdrawing those permitted development rights for plots 23 to 29. So those are the plots that are adjacent to the cemetery, where, as Jenny explained, there are existing trees on the site boundary. So we're suggesting that those plots have their permitted development rights withdrawn, so that we can just check that any outbuildings don't prejudice the existing and or proposed landscaping. Again, I think we've got to be careful when we withdraw permitted development rights, because it shouldn't be a blanket approach that we should take. We should do it in certain circumstances where we're concerned about a particular impact, because by withdrawing permitted development rights doesn't mean to say that the applicants won't put up a garden building or future occupiers won't put up a garden building. It just means that they've got to apply for planning permission to do so, and then we have to assess it at the time when the application is proposed. So our recommendation is that you do impose a permitted development right restriction, so that the gardens of plots 23 to 29 are effectively protected from any permitted development opportunities, and those occupiers would have to make an application if they did want to put up a garage or an outbuilding.
Okay, Barry, you want to come back? Yeah.
Thank you, Simon. You mentioned the management company that the developer will set up. How is he obliged to maintain that in perpetuity?
That will be through the legal agreement.
So it is in perpetuity?
It's in perpetuity, and the control mechanism is in the legal agreement.
Okay, Barry, you're happy now? Good. Who's next? Phil, you're next.
My question was more around the number of houses for social rent. I think it's 8 from what I can read. Will those 8 be kept by the developer, go through their normal letting process, and will it have a local occupancy agreement?
Good question. Simon?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Councillor Ham. Again, the arrangements for the affordable housing will be as per any other scheme that this council approves. Where there's an element of affordable housing, it will be clauses in the section 106. So again, they'll be retained in perpetuity by virtue of that.
Okay, Phil? Yeah. Okay, Steve.
Yeah, it's a very quick question. One of the factors of objection suggested there was insufficient capacity, sewage capacity on the site. Forgive me if I've missed the rebuttal for that, but is there a response from the company that provides sewage services stating there is capacity somewhere there?
Okay, who's taking that one?
Chairman, Jenny's just looking through the consultative responses. Councillor Ashton, this is an issue that is raised at pretty much every meeting where we have a planning application for new housing, and I will advise this committee, as I always advise, effectively any new development has the right to join the statutory undertakers facilities, irrespective of any decision taken at the planning stage. So effectively it will be for the water company, and I understand your concern because water companies have been in the press today again, not being reflected with glowing colours, but that's the process. Effectively, the developer, as and when they complete, they will apply to the water company to join their infrastructure And what normally happens is that those arrangements are approved, and people live in the houses, and at some point in time, the sewage treatment package plants are improved so that they can carry the additional flows.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Steve, are you happy there? Yeah, as well as you're going to be. Yeah, okay. Susie.
Thank you. I was just a couple of questions. So I don't know whether these things are sorted out or not. It looked like there was concern with the road layout and the visibility for Portland Road. And then there was a question about bin and bike storage, whether it's adequate, whether they'll be kept separate. Something about the hedgerow. So the northern one, why is it being removed? It sounds like there isn't a need for it to be removed and replaced. So I was wondering about that. And also I was just wondering why there is no education contribution. Is the local school got loads of space? I don't know. I'm not up to date with that, but I just thought you might be able to give me those answers. Thank you.
Yeah, the school contribution and the no requirement for it, Councillor Hart, that's actually set out in the report pack. So again, they have confirmed there's no requirement for it. The hedgerow, again, if you've visited the site, and I'm sure you have, you'll see that the hedgerow on the Cemetery Lane frontage is quite significant in its extent. And again, we've clarified it in the report pack. Effectively, if you're going to deliver the development requirement that's set out in the council's policy, you would have to remove that hedgerow because, as you probably know, the hedgerow extends to well into a quarter of the site. So the only way in which you would secure the level of housing that the policy expects is by having a totally inappropriate scale and form. You know, you'd have to have many high rises because effectively the existing hedgerow goes into effectively a good 25-30% of the site. But as you can see, the scheme includes replacement planting and then a landscape management plan to make sure that that's retained and enhanced in perpetuity. So you should be satisfied that the ecological impact has been balanced against the need to provide the housing which the site is allocated for. I think your final one was the visibility displays. Yeah, again, was initially raised, and as Jenny clarified in her presentation, the necessary visibility displays can be achieved. The comment that you made about the recycling and the bicycle store, it's an interesting one. And when I was checking Jenny's report and looking through the plans, it's the first time that I've seen a proposal whereby, and it's only for the block of flats. So you'll see that there's 8 units to be provided as flatted apartments, and the arrangements for cycle storage and refuse storage for the flatted apartments was in a unit that was effectively split down the middle. So you've got the cycle storage one side and the refuse storage the second side. So again, I think we can be rest assured that there won't be any overspill between the two compartments.
Okay, thank you, Simon.
I mean, I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this, but can you just can you scale back hedgerows rather than removing them, or is there no real benefit in doing that? Is it once it's disrupted, it's kind of disrupted?
Yeah, I mean, that's not what's before you, so it's a bit of a theoretical question, I guess.
Okay, Susie, thank you.
That's me, and then it's Rob.
Okay, Ros is next.
Okay. I was going to propose a motion to accept the officer's recommendation. I'm delighted to see affordable housing going forward. I think that a lot of time and care has been undertaken by both the officers and the applicant to try and get this site right. I think the overall access, the type of housing, the consideration is such that I feel quite happy and confident that we can support this. So I'd like to propose the motion, and I would welcome a seconder. And I think Rob is saying he would like to second.
Okay, Rob, you beat me to it. I was going to do it, so
Thank
that's
you,
okay.
Well, on the whole, I think it is quite an acceptable scheme, and I be seconding. However, the planning officer was talking about planning car parking spaces being reduced because of the ability for active travel. So I'm quite persuaded by Councillor White's suggestion that perhaps there should be some money going towards active travel from this. And as there is no, sorry, I lost it. As there has been no request for educational funding, it should not be a problem. So I wonder if we could add that to the proposal, Chair.
Chairman, can I just respond to Councillor Reid? Councillor Reid, your proposal is an interesting one. Just to come back on the car parking, Jenny has clarified, and it is 61 car parking spaces in total, 70 and plus the visitor spaces. So I think I think now that you've got that information, you'll hopefully be more satisfied that actually this car parking provision of a standard that future occupiers will have the ability to own cars, keep them safely. I think in terms of changing the recommendation to secure an active travel contribution, I think, as we've said before, it's always binding upon us to look at, firstly, whether or not there is a scheme that proposes improvements to active travel routes. You've heard from Councillor Lasham about the fact that the town council, street town council, are going to take on the running and management and the improvement of the park, and you will see that there is a contribution which is proposed, not an insignificant amount of money, that can be used obviously by the parish council when they're improving that park area, which may include ways of improving access over that open space. So I'd be wary to push and seek a contribution beyond that, because again, we don't have any evidence that there's any projects that would justify the need for a specific active travel contribution. And again, finally, just referring to the report pack, we've obviously got the travel plan proposal, which again will provide assistance for future occupiers so that they can, if you like, use the opportunity to move about and not to rely on their car to do that.
Yeah, can I come back here? Thank you very much for that. I think even so, active travel is such an important thing that we ought to encourage it as much as possible. So I'm going to go back again to Councillor White, who proposed the original proposal, and see whether she will accept my amendment, and I listen to her comments with interest.
Two things. First of all, active travel off the site, immediately off the site, has been made provision for, but actually active travel is moving around the whole of the town, and there are schemes in place. There are schemes which are coming forward, including, if you note where the scheme is and the need for a path towards Walton, there is also a path going round the bypass, which is well developed by highways, and contributions to that would be appropriate. And they're also, and probably one of the things which a lot of people want, is the path going between Street and Glastonbury. And while Glastonbury can come out, Street needs to have money to get towards the sort of demarcation line. And those are just two schemes. There are a number of others around which are muted, but are not as well developed. But certainly the one around the bypass is within this year's highways schedule. And and being able to do it well and get that contribution. And I would be happy to support Rob. When I made my comment, I referred to the fact that this application's been a long time in the making, and the original application was back in 2021, where I think the emphasis on active travel wasn't as strong, but certainly now. And if you look at the travel times which you had in your presentation, you're still talking of some distance to the college, there's distance to the infant school, and having safer and upgraded paths in places are really quite important for the population. So I think on this occasion, I think a modest contribution would be welcome. I don't think it should be necessarily in line with a development which has no onward active travel from the site. There is provision at the edge of the park, and so a contribution I would support, and perhaps we delegate that to the officers to find something which is appropriate in terms of the number of properties and the schemes which are on schedule at the moment.
Okay, thank you. So we have the proposal. You're happy to second now, Rob? Yeah? Okay, Roger, so shall we go to the vote then?
I think.
Or is there somebody else who wishes to speak?
I think Phil had his hand up.
Who's Shane? No, Phil.
Phil.
Thank you.
Okay, Phil.
I've been sort of looking at this quite hard, and this site, there's no biodiversity net gain on the site because it was in early, so they're getting off that one. I see there's paragraph 8.64 and 8.65. Each house is given a contribution of 1,364 for green space. Well, you've got a green space right next door already. So, and then Jenny in her presentation did something about a leaf in a mug and something. I'm just not quite sure how all this is tying up. And then to me, what you're saying about active travel and cycleways, whatever, you know, there seems to be a lot of money floating around, but nobody knows where it's going and what it's doing.
I see.
I may be getting confused, but there seems to be money going here and there and let off here, but
I think I see what you're saying. I think Simon, hang on, Simon, you're probably the best, or Jenny, you're probably one of you is probably the best to explain to Phil about the money situation and where it's all going and how it'll work.
Again, if we go to the report back, Chairman, it's either set out at the start, because we have to be very careful now. We have to be clear the basis of our recommendation. So effectively, in terms of the Section 106 agreement, it will include heads of terms to one, deliver the affordable housing, the 30%. It will include a control mechanism to ensure that the public open space is managed and maintained, Mr. Clark, Councillor Clark's point. It will include a financial contribution of just over £45,000 to deliver public open space improvements off-site. So again, we've talked about the proximity to the neighbouring park and the facilities that are there, and the fact that can be used potentially by Street Parish Council to deliver the improvements that they may deliver over a time period. And then it will include the terms of the travel plan that are set out in detail in the report, which sets out, you know, the specific provision that must be made available to all of the occupiers. So that's the terms of the Section 106 are covered by the recommendation, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Si. Phil, do you understand now? Okay, so we can proceed to the vote now. So what we're going to do is all those in favour, or do you want to? Well, Rose, you want to say something?
Yes. I take the seconder's comment that we want to make an addition to
I
the.
would like to add that.
Oh, my apologies.
Just to say, members, do you need, because obviously you've had a motion from Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor White, to change the officer recommendation to secure a contribution to deliver off-site
Yeah.
active travel initiatives. So, and again, Councillor White talked about delegating authority to the officers to negotiate an appropriate sum. So, notwithstanding what I've said in terms of outlining the case that we've presented to you, I think you need to vote on that first as a group, because obviously, if that motion passes, you'll then carry that through to the prospective motion on whether or not plan permission should be granted.
Okay, let's go for that one first. Make a comment, please, Helen.
The proposal from Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor White, was to change the officer recommendation from the current recommendation set out in the report pack to include an off-site contribution to deliver active travel, and that should be delegated to officers to agree with the applicant appropriate sum. So firstly, members need to decide if they're going to agree with that variation to, well, I suppose you could take it as one single vote if you wanted to.
I don't mind. We can do 2 votes. Only takes a minute, doesn't it? Okay.
Chair,
Martin, you wish to say something?
With due respect, I think we're in danger of confusing this, and maybe we should take one vote in which we delegate the officer responsibility for negotiating active travel, if possible.
That was my original thought, but I changed now on the officer's recommendation. Rob wants to come back in now.
Can we say with the officer's recommendation with conjunction with the chairman of this board, Chair?
Okay.
Chair, if I might.
Yeah.
Some legal advice. From a legal point of view, that the safer route is to have 2 votes. There's no confusion then. Yes.
Okay, so we will have the 2 votes. So, all those in favour of Rob's recommendation, which Ros is seconding, put your hands in the air now. I think that's unanimous. Okay, that's that one. Okay, next we will move to the take that with the thing, whether we go with this new officer recommendation to approve the application. So do we all understand what we're voting for? So, okay, all in favour?
Ten in favour.
10 in favour. Any against? And any abstaining? 1 abstention. Thank you. So that one is carried. Now I'll ask the question. Do you want 5 minutes to have a comfort break and a... Yeah? Okay, we'll take 5 minutes then, Claire. Cheers. Okay, everyone, are we ready to go? And it is warm in here today, isn't it? Okay, so we're on agenda number 8, and who is taking this one? Is it Jenny or is it Simon?
Again, Chairman, it's going to be Jenny, but just before Jenny does the presentation, again, members, I'll just clarify the position with regards to the proposal, because it's not identical to the Cemetery Lane case. So Jenny's going to put up a presentation, and you'll see on the front slide that this one, again, is proposed for the erection of 6 affordable homes. Now, this one is slightly different to the last case in terms of the policy position. So if you go down the report pack to the question that deals with the principle of development, you'll see that the site is allocated in the limited update to the Mendip District Local Plan to deliver 6 affordable houses. So that policy is not yet fully adopted, but it has been through examination, and an inspector has all but considered that site and the other sites that were put forward at the same time as being acceptable. And then the next stage would be for the council to formally adopt it, so it would have adopted status. So in terms of the weight that you can attach to that emerging policy, you can't give it 100% weight, but you can give it 95% weight, because it has not yet been adopted. But the provisions that policy GL7 promoting the site for 6 affordable houses, that's been considered by an inspector, and an inspector has agreed that that site, to deliver that amount of housing, can make a valuable contribution to the housing stock in Mendip, the Mendip area, now the east area of Somerset. So if you go down the recommendation, you'll see that the recommendation is for approval and is to enter into a section 106 agreement to deliver 100% affordable housing. So it's different to the last case, because in the last case, your adopted policy didn't require 100% affordable housing, whereas in this case, your emerging policy requires 100% affordable housing. So that's what you have to consider when you're balancing all the issues that need to be resolved with this application.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Yep, so as explained, this proposal is for the demolition of a garage block to be replaced by 6 affordable homes with associated access, parking and landscaping. It's land off Norbins Road, Glastonbury. So the location of the site, again, the red line is the development limits of Glastonbury, and then the yellow almost dot in the middle is the application site. So as you can see, it's fairly central to the town itself. Again, some closer views of the site. The aerial image on the left shows slightly better representation of its location in relation to the high street. So the high street is this road along the south of the image, and then you have the, I believe it's grade 1 listed church here, grade 2 staff. Sorry, off the top of my head, too sure. Oh, and there's also another public car park here, just to the south, and there's actually, I think you can't really see it, but it's actually just off to this. It'll be to the east of this picture. There is another public car park, almost where underneath the other image would be. So there are 2 other public car parks in close proximity to this site. Okay, and again, just a closer up aerial view of the site. So the garage block to be demolished can be seen here, to the side. And obviously existing car parking spaces for the range of the site. The access is taken from Norbins Road itself, which runs past the west of the site. And then there is actually an access lane to the east, which serves the back of these properties to the parking areas at the back. But the access is proposed from Norbins Road. A location plan of the sites. And one more thing I should mention actually is there's a St John's Primary School is just here as well to the south, adjacent to the sites, and there is a gate through here from the site to the school, which will be retained as part of the scheme. But there's pictures of that further on in the presentation. Sorry, skip one there. Again, existing site plan. This just shows the car parking spaces as existing and the garage block here, which is proposed to be demolished. Again, access coming off Norbins Road. And the proposed site plan. So the proposal is for 2 blocks of 3 dwellings. One block slightly set back from the other. There's parking along the western edge and halfway along the front, and then planting along the front of the other block of 3 dwellings. The trees along the boundary are proposed to be retained. There's also some visitor parking along this southern boundary of the site as well. And this section here is where the access to the school is existing, which is going to be retained. And you can't really see it very well on here, but that says keep clear, and that's going to be proposed. Currently, deliveries to the school are made through this access. So it's made, so space has been made within the scheme to allow those deliveries to continue. So this section here is to be kept clear of obstruction at all times to allow delivery vehicles to come in, drop off goods through the gate, and then they can reverse back out. There are some swept path analysis as well, which show how the vehicles will manoeuvre around the sites, which I'll get to further on in the presentation. So proposed elevations, these are plots 1 to 3, which are the plots on the eastern side of the scheme. There is a proposed side window in this elevation here, which would face towards the rear of the properties along Norbins Road. That window does serve a bathroom, and as such, although it hasn't been proposed as a condition currently, we can propose that to be obscure glazed and non-opening, because it's not servicing a habitable room, it's only a bathroom. So that will prevent any overlooking from that first floor window. Sorry, skip one there. So these are the properties on the other block, so 4 to 6, again, kind of mirrored in design. Again, this window would serve a bathroom and can be obscure glazed. That window would look towards the back of the properties along the Archers Way to the west of the site. So post street scene, so this shows how the scheme would look as you enter the site along this line here. You can see AA, so almost looking from the school out back towards the site to the front of the properties. And in terms of active travel opportunities, the site's very centrally located. It's, as you can see, 0.1 of a mile, 3 minutes walking distance to the high street, which obviously has lots of facilities available, including co-op and most other services. It's also in close proximity to the nearest supermarket, again, only a 10-minute walk. There's a school right next door, but in terms of other schools nearby, again, all within 15 minutes walk, including the parks as well. I think Abbey Park is a similar distance to Wirral Park. So it's very centrally located, highly sustainable site in terms of active travel. There's also a footpath link that comes from Norbins Road that links through to the high street. So parking layout, there's 12 allocated parking spaces, that's 2 per property, with 2 visitor parking spaces along the southern edge. And with each unit is served with secure cycle storage as well to the rear. Swept path analysis, so this demonstrates that large refuse vehicles can access the site. Again, as mentioned previously, this will also demonstrate that delivery vehicles will be able to pull into the site and reverse and manoeuvre back out in forward gear to make deliveries to the school. Again, as with this previous application, this was submitted in 2021, so prior to the requirement for the 10% BNG. However, there are some enhancements proposed, including back boxes, bird boxes, bee bricks, and improved hedgerow. Proposed hedgehog fence, more gaps as well. So to demonstrate the separation distances, because we're aware this is quite a constrained site, obviously surrounded by residential properties. As you can see, so it's 25 metres from the rear of the nearest property on Norbins Road to the side elevation of what would be plot 1, and 27 metres from the rear of the properties along the Archers Way to the side elevation of plot 6. And there's 8 metres from the rear of these properties to the rear boundary of the site itself, which is a typical distances within such a built-up location. So photos of the site, to all aware, is currently a car park. This in the top photo is the rear access track, which serves the properties along Archers Way. But I say that's not proposed as the access. The access is proposed from the other side of the site. This is the garage block that's proposed to be demolished. And this also shows the rear of the properties along Norbins Road. So these are taken from the access to the site. The access obviously existing, so it serves the car park currently. So this is looking towards the high street on Norbins Road. You can see the church in the background. And then the bottom photo is looking away from the high street along Norbins Road. More photos of the car park. So here you can see the access gate into the into St John's School, which is proposed to be retained, and then a section kept clear in front of it to allow for deliveries to the school. So this photo of the van is the access into the site itself from Norbins Road. So that is Norbins Road along the far end of that picture. And again, photo to the bottom is just turned around 180 degrees and looking back into the car park with the garage block here on your left. Again, so this is the access to the site from Norbins Road looking up to the car park itself. The photo on the right is the pedestrian access link from Norbins Road through to the high street. So future occupiers, that would be their primary kind of access link through to the high street. Again, just a couple more photos of the car park. Currently, these photos were only taken a couple of weeks ago, so they're fairly recent. It's proposed that the application is approved subject to conditions and Section 106, which requires the provision of 100% affordable housing. As Simon mentioned, it is allocated under the update to the local plan GL7, which does require at least 6 affordable houses to go on the site. So that is why we can secure all 6 of these properties to be affordable housing, because policy requires it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Very interesting. Okay, our next one is public speaker is Dr. Virginia Mortimer, please. And you have 3 minutes, Virginia. Okay.
I live at 41 Norbins Road, which makes up the most part, that's 18 metres of the directly adjacent boundary of the proposed site, for which I have the responsibility to maintain. My house is one of the 2 closest to the nearest proposed dwelling. It's actually 20 metres from corner to corner, not 27. And the sewage for the site, for an extra 24 more people will drain under my property with a serviceable manhole in my garden. So there's extra risk of blocking and potential private nuisance. My drive is to the rear onto the site because I don't have the availability for the drive at the front as my adjacent neighbours do due to an obstructing electrical post stay a foot of my plot for Astor neighbours' refuse. and only enough room for one side of parking on the opposite side, which those neighbours use. So without this rear drive, I would have no parking. Thankfully, the natural layout for this proposal to avoid the planning restrictions of direct overlooking and building directly along my boundary, which would overlook by a few metres, is of north to south orientation with a car parking area on the west side by my property, which also preserves access to my drive. My daughter suffers from psychosis, claims PIP with a disability mobility allowance, and I'm her registered appointee and driver, so I have a clear parking need, as well as the proposed new residents. Their spaces have been naturally placed along and around the houses they serve, not along my boundary across my drive, which also affords the best access into the parking area and turning for refuse vehicles. My main personal concern is overlooking. Although not direct, there will be an oblique, uninterrupted view into my garden, patio, dining, living areas, and I have full glass along my kitchen and living room. I've enjoyed complete privacy in these areas for many years, and loss of privacy is loss of privacy, and even at 24 metres, which is the nearest from the windows, it is still possible to see what I'm doing and wearing, and I will now have to think twice at my breakfast table. In the summer, I spend most of my time in the garden, where I haven't had to worry about what I may or may not be wearing. All it would take is for a neighbour to have a bed by the window, and they'd be able to view all just by sitting on their bed. The houses on the east side, they have the road and the boundary line along the boundary line, and they're further set back with garages and more vegetation blocking their view. This privacy was a huge buying point for me and would therefore also be a loss of a selling point, affecting the resale value of my property. I'm also very concerned about the extra noise and light pollution that this dense housing would bring to the area, and obviously the presence of a very noisy building site. I've just started renting out the back bedrooms for B&B, so there's potential loss of income as well. The proposal will make for extremely dense housing in a small country town, which will be undesirable for current and proposed residents alike, and really begs the all too common question: was the real choice for this particular site for housing a sell-off opportunity for the council? The current parking is absolutely not underused as stated, but overflowing on weekends, market days such as today. It was full. School holidays and the various events Glastonbury has, and serving a huge influx of visitors. Since the initial plan, there has been a change in orientation towards my property, as well as on the southeast section, which gives even more overlooking. Communicated my anxieties about this with the planning officer, and his comments in reply have always been first most about my drive, stating that many changes and valiant efforts had to be made to preserve this, not that that's the natural plan layout, that there was no obligation to do this, reminding me that I have a renewable lease with the council, and also, quote, this can be revisited if necessary. Clearly, I'm being told that I have to feel grateful that I can still park my park, and have to accept loss of privacy and all the other massively negative impacts on my life, even backed up with an inferred threat. There was nothing else that he could have been referring to. He certainly wasn't talking about the overlooking, which he made very clear thought was not a concern, would not be revisited. Was that 3 metres?
Spot on, Virginia. Well done. Thank you. Okay. The next speaker is Mr. Thomas Watt, but as he's not here, I'm reading it out for him. So, if you like to listen. Okay, here we go. So my name is Thomas Watts, and I am a resident of Archers Way. I have multiple concerns about the proposed loss of the car park. The proposal title seems misleading. Agreed. It would appear to anyone reading it that the 6 houses will only be built on the plot the garages occupied when the plans seem to have been built on the car park. The public may not understand this is the loss of an entire car park, and seems deceptive by not adequately informing people. You have diminished their right and ability to comment. Why are public car parks being given to private companies such as Astor Homes? If this car park is taken away, what will the council do to protect residents' parking? Parking on Archers Way is already very competitive between residents, town visitors, postal workers, school staff, parents for school, library, council workers, playgroup, and house bands. Yeah, if I think you understand what he means by that. The parking availability has been stretched beyond breaking point. I have felt completely abandoned and let down by the council for years. There has been no consideration given to residents. People ignore the non-existent or faded double yellow lines. People park on pavements. People park right up and opposite junctions. It is beyond dangerous. If you add in a percentage of the cars that park in the Norbins Road car park, the problem will only get worse. Is there a bigger plan for Glastonbury's parking? It is predicted that within 10 years, electric vehicles will make up around 80% of vehicles on the road. With this in mind, what are the council planning to do to accommodate this? The loss of more regular parking. It is a well-known documented that rural take-up of EVs is far less due to factors such as cost and commuting distances. If we lose regular parking, are we reducing the availability for rural people to park in Glastonbury? No, we've still got more. Where are you proposing an adequate school drop-off? Is space for a couple of cars to safely park and drop off their children adequate for the school? What impact will an overcrowded drop-off areas have on existing and proposed potential residents? With the town boundary expanding with more sizable housing developments, is it realistic that residents from the new outskirts of Glastonbury will walk or take public transport to access the town's amenities throughout the year? If not, reduced parking and an increased town population seems counterintuitive. Reinstating a car park in the town centre would be challenging.
Time's up, Chair.
Okay, yeah, just a little bit more to go for him. Glastonbury relies heavily on tourists, many of whom drive to access the town. Reducing the town's parking could have a negative effect on this and in turn impact local businesses and jobs. Is there a larger plan for the growth of Glastonbury? There is mounting pressure from the government on county councils to meet quite large targets for new housing. Our 6 significant percentage is compromised with enough added value at the tail end. I require access to the rear of my property, which includes my garage. Is there going to be a disruption of access? Will it affect the lane from St Edmunds Road? Will there be any long-lasting permanent access issues? Most houses have a minimum of 2 cars. There is adequate space for the proposed homes to have visitors arriving by car. Thank you for your consideration of these points. Okay, thank you. That's that one.
55 seconds.
I was a bit longer, yeah. That's not biased, in my opinion. Okay, next we have Mr. Brent Spiller, the agent. I will give you a couple of seconds extra if you need them. Thank you.
Again, I speak on behalf of Astor Group. We first engaged with Glastonbury Town Council, local residents, including Dr. Mortimer, St John's Infant School and other stakeholders back in 2020. We also sought pre-application advice from officers. We're very cognizant of the feedback and findings of the technical assessments, which did result in a number of changes to the scheme that was originally consulted upon, and that includes changes to the parking arrangements to those that you've seen on the plans. The delivery of 6 new homes, in addition to those proposed at Cemetery Lane, would contribute towards Somerset Council's corporate priorities, as well as the spatial policies of the Mendip local plan. And we've heard about the emerging allocation as well. I think the emerging allocation is very pertinent to this discussion, insofar as parking was an issue which was certainly raised by some local residents at the time of the original consultation, but clearly a decision has been made from yourselves as local planning authority to look to bring forward this site for affordable housing. The site forms the centrepiece of a well-defined perimeter block. It's currently a car park with a short row of garages positioned alongside the access. Evidence of past patronage was provided by the council and submitted as part of the planning application to justify the fact that in their view it was underutilised and deemed surplus to requirements. Notwithstanding this, we do appreciate that the site does provide access, including for deliveries to the nursery and also the infant school as well. And we sought to preserve that as part of the proposals, as well as the rear service lane for those properties that are fronting Archers Way. The prevailing character of the area is presented by residential use, predominantly two-storey detached and semi-detached properties, as well as some terraces. Again, we sought to emulate that as part of the overall proposal. So we feel that the proposal is in keeping with the prevailing character of the area. The mature trees which bound the infant school have been retained, and again, we've set back the dwellings to ensure there's no interference with the root protection areas, as they provide a welcome mature setting to the site. The layout and orientation of the proposed homes seeks to safeguard privacy and avoid overlooking, particularly in relation to the properties fronting Norbans Road. And I think that was aptly demonstrated in terms of separation distances shown by the case officer. So we believe that this has been successfully achieved and is fairly typical of what you would expect to see within an urban area. The proposed dwellings will introduce passive surveillance to help design out crime. And in summary, the proposal optimises the use of this underutilised brownfield site, will deliver 6 affordable homes in line with the draft allocation in a very, very accessible location. On behalf of Asda Group, I commend the officer recommendation to you. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to say a couple of words at the beginning or ask a couple of questions, and then I will come back in later. It's something. My first couple of questions, which I think that people should know, and how many, am I correct in thinking that we're asking to be done away with 52 parking spaces for 6 houses? Now, I think I'm correct that that's the correct number that go in that car park. Now, just so that you're all aware, because you possibly don't know Glastonbury very well, Susie will, there is no parking in that area, only in the St. John's car park, which is the next car park over. But the people who live in Norbans Road and St. Edmunds Road and other roads use this in the evenings to park when they come home from work. Really important. That doesn't show up on a on when they count the cars and say it's not busy, underused. Whereas I believe other people say it's not underused. There was always a bit of a discussion with that. So I think you should bear that in mind when you're making a decision. I'm torn both ways on this one, I'm going to be honest. And it'll take me a little bit listening to the discussions to make my mind up completely. But I've been listening to Jenny and I'm happy to listen to everybody else. But my inbox has been full. And when the town council approved this, this was years ago. This was a different council, different town council. And also, to be fair, the district councillor for that area at the time also agreed that it was an idea. So that's worth knowing. But the fact is that Glastonbury is so busy, so short of parking spaces, that to take a town centre car park away to accommodate 6 houses, is that really a necessity? I don't know. I leave that to you to make a decision. Okay, we'll go on to you all later. I'll come back later. So I've had mine. Steve, I think, wants to come in next. Steve?
Yeah, you've stolen most of my thunder. I think it's extraordinary to characterise a well-used car park as a brownfield site. It's obviously used. If you take it out of use, those cars will just have to sit there. And even if you look at Google Maps over the top of that, there's parking all the way around in those streets there. If we build a house, we have a parking formula to say you must have houses here. But what you're saying is, well, put something in which will take away 50 spaces from the surrounding people. I don't think how you could justify this application. It really can't.
Thank you, Steve. Who's next?
Sorry.
So, Simon, you'd like to come back?
Members, just to clarify, Jenny's just showed the slide which locates the site, and you can see the proximity of it to the main car park further down St Albans Road. So again, that provides you with a bit of context in terms of car parking available in Glastonbury. I think although the comments that are being raised, the car park might be used. What's important for you in exercising your duties as part of this planning committee is that you're required to make decisions, as we are as officers of the council, in accordance with the adopted development plan. That's one of the principles of planning. As we've said, the site allocation, which promotes the redevelopment of the site for housing, that's gone through a review. It's been accepted by the inspector as an acceptable planning policy to deliver the additional housing that Somerset Council is required to deliver, or at least the east area of Somerset Council is required to deliver. And although you shouldn't be given that 100% weight in the decision-making process, if an inspector is determining an appeal following a refusal, that the inspector will give that emerging policy at the stage it is at very significant weight. They will give it effectively 95%. So again, whilst I can understand the comments that the chairman's just made about how the extent to which that car park's used, I'm sure he's not wrong, but there are other car parks close by, and again, when that car park's not there, the cars that are currently car parking there, that they will find alternative locations in the car parks that are close by or on the highway where it's acceptable.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Susie, you're next.
Okay, we've got, unfortunately, this is really, really difficult, exactly as Nick said, because obviously we all want to fulfil the needs of the policy. We all want to create more housing, and particularly, the type of housing that's being discussed here. But at the same time, we need to weigh that up against the chronic lack of parking in Glastonbury. We get nothing but endless complaints about people who already live in houses that have no parking, that cannot park outside their own house because people are visiting the town or people are visiting other people who live in their street. The street that your kind of your plan shows where it comes out onto, already it's impossible to drive up and down these streets. There's so many cars parked. At the beginning of that street where the library is, you can only go one way, but that's only the first bit. The rest of it is two-way. There's only space for one car to drive down there because there's cars parked on both sides. I don't even see how these people will get in and out of the streets around to get there in the first place. I can't see that it's a practical place to put more accommodation, and we have such a shortage of parking in the town for people living there. That's before you put into the equation it's a tourist town. So I don't know what to say. It's a really difficult one, but it cannot be disregarded, the impact that the loss of these spaces will have upon the residents of the town.
Thank you, Susie. Steve, you'd like to come back in?
Yeah, I just forgive me if this is wrong. It's not a planning question. Is it this car park's owned by Somerset Council, and we are going to appeal our own decision not to develop it? So
that we don't know.
Is that sorry? We own the car park. Is that not, and we're going to appeal a decision not to develop our own car park?
Councillor Ashton, what I was suggesting was that you've clearly got a difficult deliberation, as Councillor Haas just explained, but your duty bound as a planning committee to determine planning applications in accordance with the development plan. So as a committee you are, as officers we are. And this site is allocated to deliver affordable houses in the Mendip local plan update. So again, I don't know how much you know about it, but the local plan 2, which allocates sites for housing, went through the process of formulation adoption. It was adopted. That process was challenged. As a result, the council have had to find additional sites to deliver housing within the east area of Somerset, formerly Mendip District Council. So, and that's an exercise that has just happened. And this site was put forward as a site to deliver 6 affordable homes. So in terms of the process being completed, it hasn't been completed yet, which is why I say you can't give it 100% weight, but it is very near completion, and therefore you should give it considerable weight in the decision-making process, i.e., the council, as planning authority, has allocated the site to deliver 6 affordable houses. You've obviously got to decide if you're going to approve the officer recommendation and grant plan permission or refuse it. If you refused it, then the applicant, who isn't the council, would have the opportunity to appeal the local planning authority's decision to refuse. And if that was the case, what I'm telling you is that an inspector would be giving the decision at the appeal stage.
Okay, thank you for that, Simon. Shane, you're next. You're down again, Susie.
Could you just put the slide showing that I can only count 41 car parking spaces there? I noticed it says 52 here. Can we just clear that up to start with?
I can explain that. I tried to do the same as you. Some of the spaces are underneath those trees along the southern boundary, so you can't see them from that aerial view because they're hidden by the trees.
But I thought that was where the school entrance was.
Yeah, so the entrance gate is like a double vehicular access, but there's spaces either side of that.
Okay. And in the assessment of highway issues 8.27, applicant carried out survey of the use of car park pre-COVID, which shows the use of car parks quite right. Use average less than 14% throughout the week, including Saturdays. Now, are we happy with this? Because it seems like from speakers' comments, 14% might be low. I must say I'm very, very torn by this. We undoubtedly need social housing. We undoubtedly need less cars, although people live in town and do have cars, and we can't get away from that. But okay, so you've cleared up my main question, which was it is 52 spaces, although one can only,
Okay, thank you, Shane. Susie, you're back.
I appreciate that any inspector is going to look at the plan, and I understand that it's a massive threat for us. Maybe threat's not the right word I should use, but that's how it often feels to us as decision makers around this room. And but surely at the same time, the inspector will also consider the other needs in the town, parking of which is one. We can't just go, oh, they're going to look at the plan and they're going to say, you lot have made the wrong decision. I just think there are two sides. He has to look at both sides. I'm assuming it's a he. They have to look at both sides. We can't just assume that they're always going to find against our decision if we dare to make a decision not to allow planning to go ahead on this site.
Thanks, Susie. Simon, you'd like to come in?
Yeah, Councillor, it wasn't a threat, I promise. I'm just trying to explain to you the importance of the development plan in the process that we as officers and you and members and Inspectorate Appeal will go through in making the decision. And again, so if I take you to the report pack, and we look at 8.2, so that tells you that the limited update to the Mendip District Local Plan has allocated the site for housing. Perhaps if I haven't made it clear, that that process has been subject to an examination. So another government inspector has considered whether or not it should proceed, and that inspector for that process has concluded that it should proceed through to adoption. It hasn't been adopted yet, which is why I say you can't give it 100%, but it is effectively been adopted. Then 8.3, which unfortunately it's been incorrectly referenced. So policy ST2 should say policy GL7. And then, so policy GL7 allocates the site subject to the following development requirements. So if we just look at each of those requirements, because that might help you with your deliberation. Does it deliver a minimum of 6 dwellings for affordable housing? Yes, it does. Does it deliver a satisfactory access arrangements from Norbins Road, which will need to be achieved from Norbins Road, including access for neighbouring users, essentially the school, and then the occupiers of the properties on Norbins Road 40 to 42. So you've heard from the speaker in the audience that she's concerned that the rear access to a property will be compromised. So again, I think Jenny had a photograph on the presentation which shows you the current arrangement that she benefits from. So it's that slide there, so you can see those gated doors. So the layout that's proposed, which Jenny, if you just go to that, that doesn't compromise that arrangement. So in terms of complying with point 2, access for the school will be maintained, access for the neighbouring users will be maintained. The third point, the site should be designed sensitively to preserve and enhance the significance and setting of the site and the heritage assets in the vicinity. So again, you've seen the slides that show the height, scale and massing and the design of the properties. It's respecting the vernacular in the locality, and there aren't any heritage assets that are unduly affected. So it satisfies that point. Again, opportunities to improve biodiversity should be integrated into the design, and measurable net gain for biodiversity secured in accordance with national and local policy. So again, because of when the application that was submitted, there hasn't been a requirement to meet 10%, which is the current national regulation. But again, Jenny showed you how the scheme design will deliver biodiversity enhancements. So it doesn't deliver 10%, but there is some biodiversity enhancement. Proposal should assess impacts on bat activity and habitat and provide for mitigation enhancement measures. It complies with that in terms of the submissions and the surveys that have been provided. Development should reflect local materials and styles. Again, we've investigated that, and the palette respects the locality. Flood risk should be fully assessed. So again, you'll see there's commentary in the report pack with regards to how surface water will be managed. And again, that's controlled by condition. Again, in terms of the last point, sites within a risk area where foul and surface water flows will impact on nutrients affecting the Somerset levels. Proposals will need to demonstrate mitigation to achieve phosphate neutrality. Again, that's been managed by purchasing of credits, a bit like the previous agenda item. So again, I think in terms of that emerging policy, you can be relatively satisfied that the terms of that policy have been complied with. So your dilemma is the weight that you're going to give to the other material considerations that you've heard. So you've heard that you've heard from the local resident that she's concerned about access to her property, and you've heard that she's concerned about the separation distance to the development. But again, we've clarified that separation distance. Yes, there is a side window, but I think if you look at the slide there, which shows the relationship, so it's the side window is in plot 1, which is there, and it is a side window which serves and accesses the toilet, so and bathroom facility. So I think in terms of overlooking from the development to the neighbouring properties, the separation distance and the orientation between the new block and the existing properties is such that there won't be any undue concerns about overlooking. And then you've discussed and you've debated the loss of the car parking, but the policy doesn't require the provision of any replacement car parking. So in planning policy terms, the weight that you should give to that should be very minimal.
Okay, thank you. Phil, I think you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I've known this site for a long time. When I was cabinet member in 2015-16, we looked at it and we decided that probably we shouldn't go ahead with it because of the car parking situation. If it's only half full, you've got to find room for another 26 cars somewhere. In the evenings, there's no space. There's a lot of cars parked in this car park. When this building here was being built, we had a lot of meetings off site. One of the places we went was Glastonbury Library, and you could never find anywhere. You could drive around for an hour to try and find somewhere to park and be late for the meeting. And that's like 7 or 8 years ago. So it hasn't got any better. You talk about parking in towns and people having cars. Car parks in towns are mainly used for rural people who have to drive to the town in their car. It's not for the people in the town because they can walk or bicycle or whatever. But somebody living 6-7 miles away, they're going to drive in a car and they need car parking spaces. So in my mind, this is a no-go. I know we need affordable housing. I know we got to find sites for affordable housing, but to me, this is the wrong one.
Thank you, Phil. I think Rod is next. Or did you want to come in, Simon?
Yeah, again, Councillor, I mean, again, I think you've made some comments about the need for town centre car parking to serve various needs. Again, if you look at the slide that's in front of you now, members, you'll see that there is a car park that provides a high number of car parking spaces adjacent to the site.
Okay, thank you for making that reply. I'm thinking Rose is next.
Thank you, Chair. I think probably everyone in the room shares the desire for social housing and particularly in Glastonbury more than anywhere else, it seems in some ways. We have lived with a huge number of people seeking accommodation and ending up in streets and vans and tents and just about every form of housing or not housing as it is. And I think we do need to recognise that is a real driver for the town in many ways more than most. I'm very aware that this has been subject to the additional local plan considerations, which was a full-blown local inspector, not local, but a national inspector coming and looking at it at some detail. And as we know from the previous local plan inspection, these are not little sort of quick in and out. There's serious long-term considerations, and this one was subject to that. And they looked very carefully at the overall need for parking in Glastonbury, and they did so at some length, and they came to the conclusion in a fairly strongly statement, if you actually read the planning inspectors, the local plan inspectors report, that this was a viable site given the overall numbers. Now, one thing in terms of the discrepancy, I think, on the parking spaces is due to the fact that I think they included the garages in there because cars were being parked in garages and therefore they counted them as space. The fact these garages have been empty for some time wasn't taken into account. So, but that may be the cause of the discrepancy between 40 and 50. But I'll leave you with that thought. The other thing I would say is that there is car parking space. We have one on that aerial view, and I'm aware there is another one, and also the additional work which is the town council is doing on their car park adjacent to the Abbey. So I'm not saying that car parking is easy, but I do think we need to consider it in the terms of, do we want affordable? Have we got the guts to say, actually, people are more important than cars? Because I do think they are, for all and particularly in Glastonbury, where housing is so desperately needed, to be able to provide 6 affordable houses. I just think in a really sustainable place is really important. As the officer demonstrated, they'll be able to walk and cycle to most facilities in the town. And, you know, that's magical for many people to have that level of access. So while I know that we're taking something away which people feel is of value, but I think on balance, I would say affordable housing, particularly in Glastonbury, is the thing which I would take as the overwhelming factor for me on this occasion.
Okay, thank you, Rose. The next person, Steve, please. You put Martin down, please.
Please give me a little bit of latitude here, because I can suggest something that's outside the remit of the planning. Is that we are concerned about turning it down because in more probability we'll be overturned at appeal. But the general feeling here is that it's inappropriate development. But the car park belongs to Somerset Council, so why can't we accept the planning application and then decide another place not to sell the car park? That satisfies, there's no way of appealing that because we've accepted the planning application, but as a council, we've resolved not to sell the car park. Therefore, everyone's happy.
Good point, Steve. Simon, would you like to try and answer that?
That's not a planning issue, Chairman, so I can't advise members on anything to do with that.
Thank you, Steve. Sorry, we can't give you an answer on that one. Okay, next one is Barry.
Thank you, Chair. I don't necessarily agree with Councillor White about cars and people, which is the more important of the two. People are always more important, but the people that are priority important are the people who are already there. They're paying taxes to you people that pay your wages and our allowances and all that, and they deserve better attention and a bit more consideration. That's number one. Children being dropped off and picked up at the school entrance, I think might be a problem for somebody. That needs, I don't know if it's been addressed by the planning officer. And there were 2 other small points. One was preoccupation. The developer has to put in a road lower than the finished road surface that is suitable for people to get to and from the development when they bought them or are living in them. But there doesn't seem to be any mention of an obligation on him to come and prepare the road to a level suitable for adoption. It seems he could put in the base course of the road and then go away and leave it. And then it's down to Somerset to come back and pick up the pieces. And I don't see any mention of a bond anymore. I think it talks about possibility, but there is no actual bond there to make this developer do the work. The other point I would just like to raise is the man who looked at the drainage on the site went to do some tests when the site, I don't know if it was the whole site was flooded, some of the site was flooded to a level of 300 millimetres. Now the developer's proposal to overcome that will make sure all the thresholds of the buildings are at least, excuse me, at least 150 millimetres above the ground. I think that equals flooding, I'm not sure. So I would like to see that addressed so that the people, if they end up in these houses, they do get what they deserve, not what Astor think they should have. I think that was it. I'll look on my notes a minute. Yeah, I've got it all. Yeah. Oh, that's sorry. One last point, Chairman.
Well done, Barry. Yeah, carry.
My notes don't fail me.
Very impressive.
Could I decide what led the developer to think that a car park that seems to me and all the other people here is quite well used is actually qualified as a brownfield site?
That's a good point, Barry, that last one. Okay, yeah. Please, Simon.
I think in terms of the questions to us, Councillor Clark, because obviously the status of the site. Your primary focus is the fact that the council's development plan, emerging development plan, close to adoption, allocates it for residential development. So that's probably the driver to bear in mind regarding the existing use. In terms of your concerns about the access road, if you look at conditions 11 and 12, they would be sufficient to ensure that obviously necessary access is provided so future occupiers have got an acceptable access. Whether it becomes part of the adopted highway or not, again, would be a matter post planning, post build out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Barry. Well, Susie, you're next.
Well, just to say that unfortunately, the other car park that keeps being referred to that we can see on the screen here might be of some use were it not so well used by vans that park there without paying and never move, which mean even the people living around in the properties on the perimeter of this car park that you can see here can't park in the car park behind their own house because there are vans there that don't pay to park there and don't get fined by the council. So, you know, if all things were perfect in our world, we might be in a position to go, actually, there is other parking, but that parking's being inappropriately used. And as a council, we're doing absolutely nothing about that.
Thank you, Susie. Martin.
Do we have an illustration of the school entrance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one? There's another one. Councillor Demery, just checking, obviously, we've got details for the way in which vehicles, pedestrians would access from the site, but obviously there is another access to the school. So we're just going to be showing you the arrangements from the site into the school.
It just raises a few questions on. So this is the main entrance to that school, is it? What is it then? Can it?
It's the existing service access. So the main pedestrian access is from the adjoining road, but this is how vehicles would enter the site.
Right, this is okay. So this is the main end. So this car park is going to have to be adopted, isn't it? Because they're going to have to have emergency access via there, surely.
I mean, again, it's a policy requirement in the emerging policy, and the scheme has been designed to enable that to be met. And obviously, we've just talked about the conditions which will control how the site is laid out. So again, there's sufficient information for you to be comforted that access to the school as a servicing access has been built into the scheme design, and then you should be comforted by the conditions to make sure that there's some controls to ensure that that's delivered at the build out and operational phase.
And can I ask a secondary question? Is that access used by cars for school parking for teachers? Yeah.
I know I'm not a Glastonbury resident, but I've actually delivered a lot of children to the school, relatives and things. And I would say that the two things, one is if you live in the town, you should walk to your school. That's why we have school roads and lanes and Frome, and everyone knows that.
Not really my question, is it?
No, can I finish what I'm saying? And a lot of people.
You're not answering my question.
Okay.
You're delivering a different comment.
Okay, a lot of people use the front of the school. If you want to drop your children off, it is convenient for people who are driving in from the rural areas to go into the car park and use the car park to drop your kids off at the school. You don't actually go into the school there, you drop the kids off at the front. What you're talking about is where the teachers are parking. And best of my knowledge, most of the teachers do actually park either in this car park or more likely in the other one? But maybe you can correct me on that.
Yeah, hold on, I'm coming in on this one. Martin, you don't know Glastonbury 100%, but this little school, this is the junior school, okay? People come, as Ros says, that way, but a lot of people use Churchy Path. Now, do you know where our church is? Yeah, there's a pathway where you walk just down there and by the side of the school. And a lot of people do go in that way and park in St. John's car park as well with their cars to use that. And that's quite common. But they use both car parks, don't get me wrong. And so it's difficult. It depends on who the people are and which is their easiest way. And it's difficult, really. So yeah, they can come in from both directions, but they've got to park. It's easier for them to go into the small car park. Yeah.
I think Simon wants to.
Yeah, Simon.
I mean, again, I think the chairman's quite within his right to say that teachers probably park in that car park there, they'd have the opportunity to, so would parents. But I think what we've got to get away from is firstly the fact that this isn't the only car park. So we've showed you the car park St John's further down, which you've seen, and obviously Councillor Hart has raised the concern about how that's being used. But again, that's not an issue for you because clearly the council.
I'm sorry, Simon, to interrupt. I wasn't asking a question. I was asking about emergency access, and was that the front of the school? And I've got an answer. I don't think it's ideal, but I've got an answer. I'm not, other people have asked a question about car parking, and I think we've heard it ad nauseum, frankly.
Okay, we've run out of people who wish to speak. And so I'm looking now for a proposal from someone. Shane's proposed. Shane had his hand up first. Sorry. What do you wish to propose, Shane? You wish to approve?
Sorry, yes.
Go for approval.
To propose approval.
He wants
propose
which is it?
approvals.
Well, with the officer recommendation. Yes. Okay. Ros, are you seconding that?
Yep.
Okay, so we have the proposal. Now we'll have the vote. So all those in favour of the proposal put forward by Shane to go along with the officer recommendation, seconded by Ros, please raise your hand. All those against? Six against, and all those abstaining? 2. Okay, so it fails. This one is not approved.
Yeah, again, just on the mechanics of the vote, that motion has failed. You clearly need reasons as a committee as to why you've gone against officer recommendation.
Yep. Okay. Steve?
Yeah, I think it does actually.
Yeah, Steve has reasons.
So that motion's failed. Sorry.
Okay, all the people who voted against, that includes myself, we need to have another proposal for the reasoning why we're refusing. Okay, so we need some brain power working
You need a
here.
proposer.
We need a new motion, yeah.
So
who's got one? Susie, you've got one.
yeah, can we propose to vote against officer recommendation on the basis of loss of local amenity, please?
That's a good one. Okay, I'll second that. Right. So we're gonna do this vote then. Okay. So all those in favour of Susie's recommendation against the loss of local amenity, please put your hands in the air if you agree. Oh, hold on.
You might want to include policies deep.
Okay, put DP1 and DP7
Thank you
in
so
there.
much. Yeah, thank you so much for that help. Yes, we will include that. Thank you.
Okay, now we can have the vote. Right, all those in favour of Susie's motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? 2, 3. And abstentions? 2. So did that motion carry? Yeah, okay. So Susie's motion is carried.
I'll just say that so councillor Sully abstained on the last vote, so that makes 3 abstentions, 3 against and 5 for the proposal to refuse. So it has been refused.
So it's been refused now. We're actually there. God, it gets more confusing by the day, doesn't it? Okay, what we have to do, jump through. So, okay, so the motion has been, the application has been refused. Am I correct now? Yeah, okay, thank you, Tom. Cheers. There'll be a lot of happy people in Glastonbury tonight. Thank you. Okay, next we move on to, I believe we've got some appeals. Please, I think that's you, Simon.
Yeah. There are 3 appeals as listed. The first one is a site in Pilton, and the appeal was with regards to varying the terms of an existing planning permission, and the inspector dismissed the council's case and recommended the appeal should succeed. So a relatively minor one. It was with regards to a proposal that had been granted for the conversion and extension of agricultural buildings to create a dwelling, and they actually proceeded to complete the development without complying with a condition, and they then subsequently submitted an application to vary the permission, so to regularise what they'd done, and we as the council refused it. They went to appeal and they approved it. So again, I don't think that's a particularly significant one. I don't think there are any lessons to learn, really. It was an officer decision. So again, it wasn't a decision that you made as members. The next one was with regard, again, an application at Blatchbridge in Frome, and the proposal was for the retention of 4 stables, a tap room and an outdoor menage, and construction of a hay store. It's a strange one because although the appeal was dismissed, the inspector actually did go ahead and grant planning permission for personal use of those facilities by the by the person who owned the site. So again, it was a strange one. Again, that was a delegated decision, not a decision which this committee made. And then the third one was again a decision made by officers, and it was a decision where the council had already granted planning permission to convert an existing barn under Class Q. So again, that's the prior notification procedure. The applicant decided that they didn't want to convert the existing barn. They wanted to build a new house on the footprint of the existing barn. From a decision-making perspective, we have to take into account how that change from a conversion of an existing building to a house would differ from their proposals for a new build. We felt as officers that the new build wouldn't be in keeping with the locality and the character of the area, but the inspector disagreed with us, and he also granted planning permission, weighing heavily the fallback position of the conversion in his decision. So again, lessons to learn on that one. Again, you know, our job is about delivering sustainable development when we're making our planning decisions. There was some sustainable credentials about a barn conversion and allowing an existing building to be converted. You know, our view as officers is that when you take away that sustainability aspect of a proposal, you've just got a new building in the open countryside. In this case, it wasn't in a sustainable location. You put that in the planning balance along with the fact that there are no sustainable credentials arising from a conversion. As officers, we don't think that should be granted planning permission. We'll probably continue to think in that same vein. But unless we think that as a council, once we've granted once approval to convert an existing agricultural barn into a residential dwelling, if we're not bothered about maintaining the sustainability credentials about that decision, and we're happy to allow a new build in what's effectively an unsustainable location, that's a choice that we have to make as officers. We think that once you take away the sustainability credentials of a conversion, actually there's no case to support a new house in an unsustainable location. So we would by default refuse. But that's made some sense.
Yeah, making sense. Sort of. Barry.
Question for Simon. Are there any financial implications on the ones that get lost and the ones that don't get lost, Simon?
Sorry, Councillor.
Are there any financial implications?
No, there were no costs associated with any of those decisions.
Okay.
Anybody else, Rob? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to quickly mention Crispin Centre in Street.
Yeah.
That one, yeah, is appeal allowed.
Yeah.
Am I right? But I remember the debate, and it was, well, everybody was